Chapter 1824. Su Fang fought against the divine tribulation, and the impact produced shook heaven and earth. Ancestor Hongxing and the others were forced to retreat again and again. They were all frightened, and their hearts were trembling with fear. 8 = 8 = 8 = reading = book. 2 infinity 30 is not equal to. However, witnessing the scene of Su Fang's tribulation with their own eyes and sensing the aura of the tribulation lightning was also a great gain for them. Chi. Amidst the rolling tribulation lightning, an astonishing divine tribulation flame suddenly ignited. It was as if the entire sky was burning. Tribulation lightning and tribulation fire were all deity-level powers. They wanted to destroy Su Fang and burn him into ashes. God tribulation? What energy art does he cultivate? How could he attract such terrifying tribulation? Ancestor Grand Star and the others were dumbfounded. Suddenly, Su Fang opened up a crack in the divine might defense released by his inner world. At the same time, he removed the defenses of his physical body. A dark golden tribulation lightning brought with it a wave of lightning and fire as it pierced through Su Fang's defenses like a ferocious beast. It gave off a destructive aura as it slammed into Su Fang's defenseless body. Boom! Boom! Lightning flickered on Su Fang's body, and flames began to burn fiercely. Su Fang remained motionless. He opened up his body and allowed the tribulation lightning and tribulation fire to temper his body. He activated the 9 yang genuine qi to fuse with the lightning and fire tribulation power that had seeped into his body. Then, he guided the tribulation power to temper his flesh, meridians, and bones. This kind of refinement wasn't aimless and random. Instead, it was based on Emperor Tianbao's great Tao of refining. He was constantly improving his perfect physical body to a more perfect state. His other true bodies were also quickly approaching perfection and harmoniously merging into one. At this moment, the Su Fang was like a Tao artifact. After being tempered by divine lightning and divine fire, not only had it become more powerful and stable, it had also undergone a qualitative change, transforming towards the deity level. How terrifying was the power of the divine tribulation! Even the deities of the various realms did not dare to directly bear the baptism of the divine tribulation with their physical bodies, let alone the cultivators of the macro world. Su Fang also paid a heavy price for this. His body was shattered layer by layer, destroyed by the power of tribulation lightning and tribulation fire. Then, with the recovery ability of his perfect body and other true bodies, he quickly recovered. However, this kind of recovery speed obviously couldn't keep up with the destruction speed of the divine tribulation. Heavenly Fragrance Daozu, it's time for you to sacrifice yourself. In the Heavenly Fragrance ancient realm, after Su Fang had suppressed the Heavenly Fragrance Daozu, he had sealed it in his body so that he could use it when he attempted to break through to the divine level. Activating the Yellow Springs Blood Sea's devouring ability, Su Fang directly devoured the Heavenly Fragrance Daozu's blood qi, quickly replenishing his life force. The life essence of Heavenly Fragrance Daozu, a demigod expert, was only enough to sustain Su Fang for a little more than a day. Then, Su Fang took out a large number of pills, spiritual items, and blood crystals refined from the rising Sun Divine Lord's flesh and blood. With the help of these pills and life force, he began to restore his destroyed body. How can we learn such a method of transcending the tribulation? When Ancestor Hongxing and the other experts saw this scene, they were shocked and could only smile bitterly. After going through the baptism of tribulation lightning and tribulation fire, the divine body condensed would definitely be extremely powerful, far surpassing that of other gods. However, other than Su Fang, who would dare to use such a method to temper their divine body? Even Shenjia Tianjun, who was using the power of the great world's heavenly Tao to pay attention to Su Fang, was speechless. He was calling him a freak in his heart. Su Fang continued in this state for about 3 months. The aura of the divine tribulation gradually weakened. He was about to succeed in transcending the tribulation. Su Fang was overjoyed. Ancestor Hongxing and the other demigods and peak Tao realm experts were also excited. After the divine tribulation, the essence of the great world would descend to cleanse the body and divine apertures, condensing into a divine body. At the same time, it would fuse with the cultivator's true qi, allowing the true qi of an immortal to become the power of a god. The great Tao that a cultivator cultivated, the attribute of the heaven and earth origin qi that descended, and the great Tao nomological laws were different. For example, if a cultivator cultivated the great Tao of fire, the heaven and earth origin qi that descended would appear in the form of flames and contain the great Tao nomological laws of fire. After becoming a god, the power that he possessed would naturally be of the fire element. If a cultivator cultivated the great Tao of sword, it would be the supreme sword intent. Su Fang's divine tribulation is so shocking. I wonder what kind of great Tao he cultivates and what kind of heaven and earth origin qi he will attract? Ancestor Hongxing and the others were both curious and looking forward to it. The destructive aura of the divine tribulation disappeared, and a peaceful aura enveloped the world. A vast galaxy appeared in the huge black hole deep in the sky. It was not a real galaxy, but an illusion of the power of the great world. Every star contained a trace of the heaven and earth origin qi when the world was first created and contained the supreme great Tao nomological laws of heaven and earth. At this time, Su Fang's body, primordial spirit, true qi, and the world in his body seemed to be resonating with the galaxy in the sky. Not only could he communicate with the entire galaxy, but he could also obtain the supreme great Tao nomological laws within it. Boom! All the stars in the galaxy trembled slightly, causing the entire galaxy to move. It gave people the feeling that the universe was being moved. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the power of the great world's great Tao blocked Su Fang from the galaxy in the sky, cutting off his connection with the galaxy. Poof! Su Fang was already unusually tired. Now that his breakthrough was forcefully interrupted, he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His aura instantly became dispirited. The galaxy in the sky could not sense the existence of the person undergoing the divine tribulation, so it quickly disappeared into the depths of the sky. Everything returned to normal. He had failed. He was about to succeed in the divine tribulation, but he had failed at the last step. Unlike the other people who had failed, Su Fang had not failed the divine tribulation's test. Instead, the divine tribulation itself had withered at the critical moment. How could this be? Ancestor Hongxing, venerable overbearing blood, and the others were all surprised. They flew toward Su Fang. Damn it! The great world's great Tao actually stopped me. Su Fang looked up at the sky, his eyes burning with anger. He was unwilling to accept this. Could it be that Shenjia Tianjun is messing with me? Shenjia Tianjun was a deity who controlled the great world's great Tao. Su Fang could not help but suspect him. The voice of Luo's primordial spirit came from within his body. Since the Brahma race is trying so hard to recruit you, Lord of Heaven Shenjia definitely won't interfere at such a critical moment. Furthermore, if he were to interfere, he would be violating the heavenly Tao and would suffer a backlash from it. Then why did I fail in my breakthrough? Su Fang asked in surprise. Suddenly Shenjia Tianjuan's voice sounded. Su Fang, what kind of cultivation technique are you cultivating? It can actually cause the great world's great Tao to reject you? Reject? Because once you become a deity, the great world's great Tao will be greatly damaged by the great world's great Tao. Therefore, the great world cannot tolerate you. It automatically operated its laws and interrupted your final breakthrough. Su Fang was speechless. He had not expected that the great world's great Tao would not tolerate him. It seems that you will have to wait until you reach the great world to have the possibility of becoming a deity. However, when you reach the great world and enter Sanskrit, becoming a true god will be a piece of cake. I did not misjudge you. You are very extraordinary. I hope that after you join Sanskrit in the future, you can become a mighty figure and expand our territory. After that, Shenjia Tianjuan's voice gradually faded away until it disappeared without a trace. Su Fang thoroughly checked his physical body, divine aperture, and inner world. He was immediately depressed. After being tempered and baptized by the divine tribulation, Su Fang's physical body had reached the height of a deity. Furthermore, he was no ordinary deity. As his physical body transformed, the world tree also underwent significant changes. The speed at which it absorbed the great world's great Tao increased. At the same time, the inner world became more stable. However, what made Su Fang extremely depressed was that his divine aperture, primordial spirit, dantian, and golden core did not change much. They were still at the height of an immortal. Am I considered a demigod? Su Fang's physical body had become a deity, but his primordial spirit and golden core were still at the peak of the Tao realm. He was indeed considered a demigod. Furthermore, he was different from the other demigods. To make an inappropriate comparison, it was like roasting a sweet potato. The other demigods would be half-cooked from the inside out, but Su Fang was only half-cooked from the outside. Luo said, Su Fang, you don't have to be depressed. This breakthrough to deity cannot be considered a failure. At most, it is half a success. Half a success? Luo, you really know how to comfort people. I am not comforting you. In the future, you will know how important it is to have a powerful deity's body on your path of cultivation in the deity realm. When you are in the transformation supreme Tao realm, you will have a chance to condense a deity's body. Now that you have condensed a deity's body in advance, you can make it even stronger in the transformation supreme Tao realm. Furthermore, breaking through to deity realm in a higher world is difficult. Because of all the obstacles, the quintessence energy of the world and the magical laws of heaven and earth are far less effective than in the higher worlds. Other immortals might never be able to break through to deity realm again. But you are different. You have the strength to ascend first. Therefore, even if you fail to advance this time, there is nothing to feel regretful about. Luo's words were very serious, and clearly, they weren't meant to be comforting. Su Fang felt a lot better after hearing that. Let's put that aside for now. Now that you have a deity's body, your strength will definitely increase. Shenjia Tianjun said that you had a 30% chance of successfully ascending to the transformation supreme Tao realm through the path to heaven's end. Now you have a 60% chance of success. Are you still not satisfied with such a huge harvest? Furthermore, you have an internal world in a higher world. When you try to break through to deity realm, it will be too shocking. Even if the demigod realm experts in a higher world see it, they won't be able to see anything. If Shenjia Tianjun sees it, he might be greedy and ask you for supreme energy arts and divine abilities. What will you do then? I didn't expect Shenjia Tianjun to pay so much attention to you. Otherwise, I would have stopped you. Luo continued, causing Su Fang to break out in cold sweat. Patriarch Grand Star and the others flew over. Su Fangda. Chapter 1825. Back at the Heaven Crossing sect. This time around, I didn't manage to attain the divine level successfully, and Heavenly Lord Shenjia even saw some clues about the unparalleled heavenly Tao that I cultivate. He casually asked about it, and although he didn't ask about it again, he must have been suspicious or even greedy. After ascending to the divine realm, there will definitely be trouble. There's also Sanskrit. Joining Sanskrit is like soaring into the sky in the eyes of other gods, but I, Su Fang, cultivate to pursue the peak of the great Tao. How can I become a slave whose consciousness is controlled by the god race? This is another problem. Thinking of how to get rid of Shenjia Tianjun and Sanskrit, Su Fang couldn't help but frown. I, Su Fang, can endure, but I will never become a slave who is controlled by others for the rest of my life. When I reach the myriad realms, I'll find a way to get rid of Shinja Tianjun and Sanskrit. There's no point in worrying now. Su Fang put the matter of Sanskrit to the back of his mind, and then settled into a state of cultivation to recover the huge consumption during the tribulation and the injuries caused by the heavenly Tao of the great world stopping his advancement. In addition, when he was breaking through to the divine realm, Su Fang had come into contact with the mysterious height above the limits of the great world for the first time. He also needed to carefully comprehend it. Not only would it be beneficial for him to break through to the divine realm in the future, it would also be of great help to his future cultivation. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, 300 years had passed since Su Fang failed to break through to the divine realm. Second primordial spirit, Demon Saint Greenfeather, Zhu Huang, and the monk finally returned from the demon realm. This trip to the demon realm not only helped the demon realm repel the invasion of the devil race, but also resolved the matter of the devil race. In the great war between the demon realm and the devil race, Demon Saint Greenfeather and the divine winged sword unexpectedly killed the lord of the devil world. Another demigod-level ancient devil was also possessed by a consciousness of second primordial spirit with the help of Bone Emperor Yen. Using Night Demon's method of controlling the primordial spirit, the primordial spirit's consciousness was controlled. The lord of the devil world was killed, and the morale of the devil race army fell to the bottom. Naturally, they were defeated. Bone Emperor Yen took the opportunity to seize the power of the devil realm and become the new master of the devil realm. First, the devil clan's luck was devoured by Su Fang, and then they suffered such a heavy blow. It could be said that their vitality was greatly damaged. Not only did they lose the strength to attack the immortal world and the demon world, but it was also very difficult for them to protect themselves. Under the leadership of Bone Emperor Yen, the devil clan retreated to the devil world that was located in some dark large world planes. In the previous Immortal Demon War, more than a dozen immortal domains were occupied by the demon race and reclaimed by the immortal Tao forces, but Soaring Heaven sect did not intervene in these matters. In this way, the demon race had fallen into Su Fang's control. Su Fang did not leave any trace during the entire process. Even if the demon race in the myriad worlds knew about the decline of the demon race in the outside world, they would not have thought that the entire demon race in the outside world was secretly controlled by Su Fang. Bone Emperor Yen was shackled by Su Fang, and the ancient devil's mind was controlled by the second primordial spirit, secretly monitoring Bone Emperor Yen. Even if Su Fang left the outside world, Bone Emperor Yen would not be able to do much if he wanted to betray Su Fang. The second primordial spirit also brought an unexpected harvest to Su Fang. After killing the lord of the devil world, the second primordial spirit did not touch any of the ancient devil artifacts of the demon race. However, in the storage ring of the lord of the devil world, a fragment of the Wanxiang Dharma sky appeared. He did not know when it fell into the hands of the lord of the devil world. In this way, the last fragment of the Wanxiang Dharma sky was found. Yu Miaomei also completely woke up, but it was as if she had changed into a different person. She became silent, as if something hidden in her body had awakened. Su Fang asked the undead king to start trying to repair the Wanxiang Dharma sky. It would take a certain amount of time to restore this peerless treasure that could build a planet from the material of the chaotic galaxy to its original state. Next, Su Fang asked the second primordial spirit to hurry up and devour the Lord of the Dark World in the Time Cave, hoping to find a way to restore Xiao Mei from the Lord of the Dark World. Next, Su Fang gathered the experts under him, the Big Goblin, and called Li Haojie back to discuss the candidates to follow Su Fang to the celestial realm. The second primordial spirit, Gui Gui, Long Niao, Yu Miaomei, and Zhu Yen would all follow by Su Fang's side. There was also the undead king. The world had changed, and not only did a large number of experts in the small and great worlds revive, but also in the myriad worlds. With the undead king around, dealing with the revived experts would be an additional trump card. The green feather demon saint was the first to speak. This saint will naturally follow you to the celestial realm. The Vermilion Emperor and the other big goblins, as well as the other experts, all looked very interested. The Lord of the Five Poisons said, Su Fang is not going to the myriad worlds to sightsee. If you can't reach the godly level in a short time, then don't join in the fun. Not only will you not be of any help to Su Fang, you'll only be a burden. As for the rest of you, don't blindly kick up a fuss. The Vermilion Emperor and the other big goblins, as well as the monk and his other subordinates, immediately gave up on the idea. The Lord of the Five Poisons was right. They wouldn't be able to reach the godly level in a short time. Furthermore, becoming a god was much more difficult than ascending from a minor world to an immortal world. In fact, it was hundreds of times more difficult than becoming an immortal, perhaps even tens of thousands of times more difficult. It required shocking talent, boundless destiny, consummate energy arts, and vast amounts of resources. None of that was lacking. Although the big goblins and experts under Su Fang were all extraordinary, very few of them had ever reached the godly level. If they followed Su Fang to the myriad worlds, they would only be a burden. The Lord of the Five Poisons continued, Besides, Su Fang's roots are in the greater world. We need to protect his foundation so that he doesn't have to worry about the future. Li Haojie smiled. Being with Su Fang is a huge setback. That's why I'm not with him. When I ascend to the myriad worlds, it won't be too late to find him then. Li Haojie was probably the only one who was confident in reaching the godly level. He was a tribulation taker, and could accomplish things that ordinary people couldn't. Furthermore, he had the legacy of the demon suppression sect, so his chances of becoming a godly person were very high. And so, the matter was decided. There were still a few things that needed to be taken care of before leaving the greater world. Su Fang arrived at a secret realm deep within the Heaven Crossing sect and entered the Heavenly Thunder Palace. The Heavenly Thunder Palace was a magic treasure that Su Fang had obtained from the Heavenly Thunder Palace. After establishing the Heaven Crossing sect, Su Fang had placed it within a secret realm of the Heaven Crossing sect, turning it into a holy land for cultivation for the upper echelons of the sect to cultivate. Su Fang passed through a magic array and entered a room within the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Huang Lingyao. A woman was shackled within the room. It was none other than Huang Lingyao. Ever since Huang Lingyao was shackled here, Su Fang had never seen her again. Today, when he saw her, Huang Lingyao's cultivation realm hadn't changed much. However, she was no longer as cold as before. She had also lost that lofty temperament, giving Su Fang the feeling that she had washed away all her impurities. Are you preparing to head to the world's end? Huang Lingyao was unable to see through Su Fang. However, she could sense that Su Fang had become increasingly unfathomable. She couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile. The gap between her and Su Fang was growing bigger and bigger, to the point where it was impossible to surmount. That's right. Su Fang nodded. I have decided to restore your freedom. The greater world is vast. You can do whatever you want. No. Huang Lingyao said decisively. I have said it before. I want to see you rise to power. Bring me along with you to the divine world. Su Fang raised his eyebrows. I have many subordinates, but I am not bringing a single one of them. Why would I bring you along? Huang Lingyao revealed a look of ridicule. Are you worried that your Dao companion, Xuanxin, will find out? So what if I am? If you don't bring me to the divine world, I will publicize what happened in the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Otherwise, you can kill me to silence me. As expected of Huang Lingyao. In order to achieve her goal, she was even willing to use this kind of thing to threaten Su Fang. Su Fang was furious. He turned around and walked out of the room. He wanted to reseal the room and shackle Huang Lingyao inside forever. Su Fang. Huang Lingyao let out a hysterical roar. Su Fang said indifferently, What else do you want to say? I wanted to die, but you brought me back to life and gave me hope to live on. Now, you want to strangle my hope to live. You are so cruel. Since I have already lost my hope to live, I might as well die. In the heavenly Thunder Palace's spirit pool, Huang Lingyao was determined to die. There were two things that ignited her hope to live. First, she wanted to personally erase the Cloud Mother hidden in the heavenly Thunder Sword. Second, she wanted to stay by Su Fang's side. She wanted to personally witness how far Su Fang could grow. That bastard Luo. He actually left me with such a big problem. Su Fang felt his head aching. Given Huang Lingyao's character and her previous experience, she was capable of doing what she said. After all, Huang Lingyao was the third woman after Xiao Mei'er and Fairy Xuanxin to have intimate contact with Su Fang. Watching her die was something Su Fang could not do. Huang Lingyao continued, Su Fang, I beg you. Fine. I will bring you with me to the divine world. However, when we reach the divine world, I will let you go and let you fend for yourself. Su Fang said coldly. Then, he left in embarrassment. About 50 years later, Su Fang had finished his preparations to head to the world's end. He was saying goodbye to Su Yaotian, Li Ziqing and the others. At this time, the second primordial spirit sent a message. Main body, I have completely possessed the consciousness of the Dark World's Lord. So fast? Su Fang was surprised and happy. It was too timely. If he could cure Xiao Mei'er before leaving the outside world, that would be the best thing. I have devoured more than half of the Dark World's Lord's consciousness. Naturally, it will be faster and faster. Not only did I successfully possess the Dark World's Lord's consciousness, but I also stripped his memories. The power of my primordial spirit has undergone another great transformation. I also obtained Night Demon's primordial spirit divine ability from his memories, as well as the primordial spirit restriction technique that allows Night Demon to possess and control a cultivator's consciousness. Second primordial spirit, fuse with my primordial spirit. Let me see the Dark World's Lord's memories. The second primordial spirit had become stronger and had obtained Night Demon's primordial spirit divine ability and restriction technique. Su Fang was naturally overjoyed. Chapter 1826. Su Fang obtained all of the Dark Realm Lord's memories when his primordial spirit fused with his original primordial spirit. From the Dark Realm Lord's memories, Su Fang obtained a lot of shocking information that even Law didn't know about. The night succubi were an extremely strange existence in the world. Their true name was succubi. Because they were extremely mysterious and strange, they were called night succubi by cultivators. According to the Dark Realm Lord's memories, the succubi were primordial spirits that were born after the creation of the world severed their inner demons. In terms of history, they were even older than the human race. Su Fang naturally scoffed at the night succubi's origins, treating it as a legend and not taking it seriously. In the Dark Realm Lord's memories, Su Fang obtained a night succubi's primordial spirit cultivation ability. The Undying Soul Code. This was a supreme mantra that allowed the night succubi to devour the primordial spirits of cultivators, big goblin, demons, and other life forms. It constantly strengthened the primordial spirit, making it undying and indestructible. At the same time, it was also a profound primordial spirit cultivation ability. The Undying Soul Code was like a bloodline inheritance, fused with the Dark Realm Lord's primordial spirit consciousness and even fused with a few primordial spirit cultivation abilities. The primordial spirit's second primordial spirit deciphered a primordial spirit forbidden art known as the Charm God Soul Seizing Seal. It was a powerful primordial spirit cultivation ability that allowed the night succubi to create black marks and seize the consciousness of cultivators. There were still a few primordial spirit cultivation abilities hidden deep in the Dark Realm Lord's memories, but the primordial spirit's current primordial spirit was unable to fuse with them. The Undying Soul Code, the Charm God Soul Seizing Seal TSK, these are the primordial spirit cultivation abilities of the most mysterious night succubi in the three realms. Not to mention a large world, Even in the myriad worlds, there aren't many who have mastered these supreme primordial spirit cultivation abilities. Su Fang, when you fused with the night succubi's seal runes, it seemed very risky. Now it seems that your decision back then was correct. Law also clicked his tongue in admiration. Su Fang's eyes flashed with inspiration. Law, you can also cultivate the undying soul code. Not only can it quickly recover your primordial spirit, it can even make it stronger. That's right. I've devoured the blood from the hearts of celestial beings and divine beasts, absorbing their life essence to recover my Yuan Shun, but that's just the most basic method. If I can master Night Demon's skills, it will definitely bring great benefits to my Yuan Shun. However, I am an Azura after all. My innate ability is my blood, not my origin spirit. Thus, the effects of cultivating the Undying Soul Codex aren't very obvious. But you cultivators are different. Although human cultivators don't have the powerful fleshly bodies and innate abilities of the Yao clan, nor do you have the powerful life force of the Devil clan, the heavenly Tao is fair to all races. You have the ability to cultivate the various cultivation techniques of other races. Thus, you and your second primordial spirit can cultivate the Undying Soul Code and the Charm God Soul-Absorbing Seal. The transformation of your primordial spirit will far surpass mine. Su Fang was naturally overjoyed to obtain Night Demon's supreme mantra and divine ability. Following that, Su Fang carefully searched through Night Demon's memories, hoping to find a sacred art that could help Xiao Mei recover her memories. In the end, Su Fangdao was disappointed. It was easy to destroy something, but how difficult was it to restore it? Just like a tree, a mortal cultivator could easily destroy it and turn it into dust. To completely restore this tree to its original state, even the supreme experts of the great world would find it difficult to do so. Xiao Mei's young nascent soul was forcefully searched and her memories were stripped. Her mind was like a blank sheet of paper to the past. All of her experiences with Su Fang had disappeared. How difficult would it be to restore it? Night Demon's origin spirit was incomparably powerful. She also possessed powerful origin spirit restriction techniques that cultivators could not possess. However, they were all origin spirit restriction techniques that could destroy and control the origin spirit. There was no origin spirit restriction technique that could restore memories. Su Fang's good mood instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. Su Fang came to the mortal emperor world with a heavy heart. After many years of transformation, the mortal emperor world had changed greatly. Palaces and gardens had been built, specially for Su Fang and those close to him to live in. Xiao Mei, Lan Haiqing, Zhang Ruoyun, and other female cultivators also lived in the mortal emperor world. At a lake in the palace garden, a fishing boat rippled with the waves. Cheerful laughter could be heard. It turned out that Xiao Mei and Lan Haiqing were fishing on the fishing boat. There was also a man dressed as a fisherman. It was one of Su Fang's blood and water clones. In order to fulfill his filial piety, Su Fang specially condensed a blood and water clone to accompany Su Yaotian every day. At the same time, he also accompanied Xiao Mei, hoping to awaken her memories. Seeing Xiao Mei's smile from the bottom of her heart, although she was not very close to the clone, there was no barrier between them. Su Fang could not help but be stunned. Su Fang transmitted his consciousness to the young immortal clone. Clone. The clone replied, "Main body. Xiao Mei no longer rejects me, and even has a good impression of me." Good, this is really good. Su Fang was pleasantly surprised. Even if he could not help Xiao Mei completely recover her memories, if he could rekindle her emotions, Su Fang would naturally be happy to see it. The depression in his heart suddenly disappeared. Who knew that the clone continued, "Main body, there is one more thing. It seems that Lan Haiqing also has a good impression of me." Su Fang was stunned. After being stunned for a long time, Su Fang slowly replied, "Clone, do as you wish." After silently observing Xiao Mei and Lan Haiqing for a long time, Just as Su Fang's main body was about to leave, Zhang Ruoyun awkwardly came over. Zhang Ruoyun. Su Fang understood Zhang Ruoyun's feelings. At this time, before leaving, he felt a little guilty. Zhang Ruoyun looked at Su Fang with a fluorescent gaze and said, "Su Fang, you go first. Sooner or later, I will break through to the divine realm and go to the myriad realms to find you." Su Fang touched the tip of his nose. "I hope to see you in the myriad realms." Zhang Ruoyun stepped forward and unexpectedly hugged Su Fang by the waist. "You are the hero in my heart. When you go to the myriad realms, I, Zhang Ruoyun, do not ask to become your Tao companion. As long as you still remember that silly little female cultivator of the twin immortal sect, I will be satisfied." After saying that, Zhang Ruoyun flew across the sky. After stopping in the air, she waved at Su Fang with an innocent smile, just like the girl from the twin immortal sect he first met. Su Fang was silent for a while, and then came to the palace where Su Yaotian lived. "Father, I am going to leave the myriad realms and go to the end of the myriad realms. I am here to say goodbye to you." Su Fang kowtowed 3 times. Su Yaotian looked at Su Fang with reluctance, pride, and even more relief in his eyes. "You are a divine dragon roaring in the 9 heavens, not a fish or shrimp in the river. The myriad realms are your world. Go, father does not need to worry about anything." Su Yaotian put away the reluctance in his heart, laughed heartily, and waved at Su Fangda. Su Fang kowtowed 3 more times, turned around, and walked outside. Suddenly, Su Yaotian called out, "Fanger." Su Fang asked, "Father, do you have any other orders?" "Fanger, father is proud to have a son like you. If your mother in the underworld knew about this, she would be very relieved. With a son like you, what more could a father ask for?" "Ha ha!" Su Yaotian laughed loudly. Su Fang's blood surged as he strode out of the palace and flew into the sky. He activated his perfection stage ability and borrowed the divine might of the myriad realms to sense everything in the myriad realms. "I will definitely come back. This is my route." Then, Su Fang transmitted 3 consciousnesses. "Let's go to the end of the myriad realms." Swoosh. Swoosh. Venerable Tyrant Blood, Grand Star Ancestor, and the Crane Demigod Expert appeared beside Su Fang from different directions. Originally, Venerable Tyrant Blood was the only one who followed Su Fang to the myriad realms. After witnessing Su Fang's failure to break through to the divine realm, Grand Star Ancestor and Crane Old Man changed their minds. These 2 demigod experts had been at the peak of the high-level Tao realm for tens of millions of years, but they were still unable to advance to the divine realm. They also did not have the courage to enter the myriad realms from the end of the myriad realms. Su Fang's failure to break through to the divine realm made the 2 realize that with their strength, it was impossible for them to advance to the true God realm in the myriad realms. Even Su Fang could not do it, let alone them. The only way out was to enter the myriad realms from the end of the myriad realms. Only in the divine realm would they have a chance to advance. The Heaven's End Road at the end of the myriad realms, as well as the Transformation Supreme Tao, was extremely dangerous. Without the strength of a true God, it was almost impossible to pass through safely. Su Fang now had the strength to crush a true God. Although they did not dare to say that they would succeed on the Heaven's End Road with him, it was 100 times safer than walking the Heaven's End Road by themselves. Therefore, the 2 of them finally made the decision to follow Su Fang and ascend. Green Feather Demon Saint, Yu Miaomei, Huang Lingyao, Zhu Yan, Gui Gui, Long Niao, and the Undead King were all in Su Fang's inner world. Su Fang was actually taking a huge risk by doing this. If he died on the way, his inner world would collapse, and no one in his inner world would be spared. The 3 of you, there are some ugly words that I have to say first. The Heaven's End Road is extremely dangerous. Even I am not completely confident. If I am unable to save you when the time comes, I hope the 3 of you won't hold a grudge against me, Su Fang said majestically. Of course, the 3 of them understood this and nodded in agreement. It was not that Su Fang was unwilling to help the three of them. He took them into his inner world and brought them to the divine world. Firstly, Su Fang was unwilling to expose his inner world to outsiders. Although he had a good relationship with Venerable Tyrant Blood, Grand Star Ancestor, and Elder Crane, it was not to the point where he would expose his secrets. Furthermore, if the three of them wanted to become true gods, they would have to pass the Heaven's End Road and the Transformation Supreme Tao test. Otherwise, even if they reached the divine world, it would be difficult for them to pass the divine tribulation. Let's go. Su Fang flew high into the sky, and the three of them followed closely behind. Passing through the barriers formed by the force of nature, the violent astral winds swept over. The three of them activated their auras and formed a defense around them. They passed through the area where the astral winds were raging. At this time, they could no longer see the Milky Way. The Heaven's End Road still had no end in sight. Shocking shackles shrouded the three of them, and they had no choice but to slow down. Chapter 1827. Recommended reading. Chapter 1846. The End of the World, The Long Road to the End of the World, 1, about 30 years later. Su Fang and the others entered a desolate void. In this desolate void, other than the bone-piercing cold, there was no energy. Even the power of the great world had disappeared here. The cold air not only froze their bodies, but also their primordial spirits and true qi. Su Fang had the world in his body, so he could easily resist the cold air by releasing his divine power. The other three demigod experts immediately paled in comparison to Su Fang. They couldn't use their divine abilities here, and even their Tao weapons had lost their effect, unless it was a divine weapon. Fortunately, the three of them were demigod experts, and their true qi contained a portion of the power of the gods from the great world. In addition, they had done their homework for this trip, so they naturally didn't lack divine essence pills and various divine-level spiritual items to replenish their true qi. Therefore, the cold air in the desolate void that was enough to freeze a demigod expert to death allowed them to persevere. The rest of the journey wasn't so easy. In this desolate space, within the silence that caused one's heart to palpitate, there seemed to be a strange force that affected the minds of cultivators. Including Su Fang, all sorts of distracting thoughts unknowingly appeared in their mind. In a trance. Kill, kill, kill. Su Fang was in the great battle of the ancient immortal demon battlefield, wantonly slaughtering the demon army, venting the evil in his heart. After endless slaughter, Su Fang was suddenly in a palace. At this moment, he had become the ruler of life and death, and all the people in the world submitted to him. He could make people die with a word, and he could make rivers of blood flow with a rage. Then, he fell into a gentle land, with Xiao Meier, Lan Haiqing, Zhang Ruoyun, Xuanxin, Huang Lingyao, Madame Zhu, and other women, indulging themselves. This is a demigod realm inner demon, wake up! Law's thunderous roar woke Su Fang up. Su Fang's back was drenched in cold sweat. What a terrifying divinity transformation, inner devil! Even with my tenacious Tao heart, I was unknowingly controlled by the inner devil. Luo Yuyu said, "Cultivators cultivate to defy the heavens and change their fates. The most difficult thing to defeat is not the heavenly Tao, nor is it a powerful enemy, but oneself. Only by severing one's inner demons can one reach the peak." Luo, you're right. Su Fang calmed down and began to recite the Tao text of the struggle of the great Tao in his heart. The Battle of the Great Path was the quintessential scripture written by the ancient Almighty. Although it was not a cultivation method, it was a scripture that could calm the mind and nourish the heart, allowing one to firmly guard the Tao heart. Su Fang had been persisting in cultivating and had never given up. Su Fang's Tao heart became firm again, and he cut off the heart demon that had corroded his Tao heart. Venerable Half-Blood, Grand Star Patriarch, and Old Crane were floating in the void. Their faces were either filled with hatred, excitement, or confusion. Su Fang let out a thunderous roar, which contained a trace of the power of the heavenly secret life shrinking technique to break the primordial spirit restriction technique. Although the heart demon came from the heart, it was similar to some of the primordial spirit restriction techniques of the demonic path, which was why it was called the heart demon. Under the power of fate, the three of them woke up in horror. Their consciousness had been unknowingly controlled by the heart demon. If Su Fang had not woken them up in time, they would have frozen to death in this desolate void even if they could break free from the heart demon's control. The three of them did not dare to be careless anymore. Not only did they activate their true qi to protect their bodies, but they also guarded their Tao hearts. Although the path to the end of heaven was the end of the world, it was endless. If one did not have perseverance and great willpower, they would not be able to reach the end. This scene is so similar to when I went to Tianmen Province's groping heaven gate and ascended to the great world. I walked the path to heaven and entered the ascension pool. It's just that the difficulty has increased countless times. This is the true essence of cultivation. Even if you can't see the end, as long as you have a goal in your heart, you will not look back. You will overcome all obstacles along the way and eventually reach the peak. Su Fang was enlightened and had a deeper understanding of cultivation. This kind of tempering could not be taught by others. One could only rely on oneself to experience it. About 50 years passed in the desolate void. Supremacy, overbearing blood, Grand Star Patriarch, and Elder Crane were all exhausted. Not only had they used up their true qi, but their willpower had also been indescribably tempered. Su Fang also appeared to be exhausted. However, his eyes had become increasingly deep, just like the vast and incomparably vast starry universe. It turned out that after entering the path to the end of heaven, Su Fang had separated himself from the Yang Immortal and cultivated Night Demon's Immortal Soul Codex in the Time Cave abode. After all these years, he had made some small progress, and his primordial spirit had become more condensed and powerful. Su Fang had been cultivating the heavenly demon disintegration seal. Although his primordial spirit was not as strong as his second primordial spirit, it was far stronger than other cultivators of the same level. After cultivating the Immortal Soul Codex, the power of his primordial spirit had reached the level of a deity. His primordial spirit had undergone such a huge transformation even without devouring the primordial spirit and life essence. If he cultivated with the primordial spirit and the life essence in the heart of a cultivator, the transformation speed of his primordial spirit would be even more astonishing. The Yang Immortal was the combination of a cultivator's soul, consciousness, primordial spirit, and Dharma power. As Su Fang's primordial spirit transformed, he felt that the Yang Immortal was also showing signs of transforming. When an immortal became a deity, the immortal body would transform into a divine body, and the Yang Immortal would also undergo a huge change, called the Yang God. Su Fang now had a divine body, and his Yang Immortal was about to transform into a Yang God. All he needed was to obtain the promotion power transformed from the world origin essence and obtain the endless great path precepts. While flying, Su Fang suddenly sensed that there was an area in the desolate void that was obviously different from other places. There was obviously the power of the world shackles in this area, and it was not the power of the macro world, but the power of the myriad worlds. It seemed to be guiding the cultivators in the lower world. "We are about to reach the end of the macro world," Su Fangda shouted, guiding the other three to fly toward that area. Venerable Tyrant Blood, Grand Star Ancestor, and Elder Crane were immediately energized, and they followed closely behind Su Fang. "We have finally walked out of that damn desolate void." Venerable Tyrant Blood laughed loudly, but before he finished laughing, he was suppressed by the power of the world shackles, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The shackles of the myriad worlds' world shackles were extremely shocking, and even Su Fang felt that it was difficult to move. However, compared to the terrifying desolate void that had nothing, it was a lot more reassuring. The four of them faced the shackles and pressure of the world's shackles that were becoming more and more shocking as they continued to fly forward. Although it was difficult, they were all hale and hearty, and their eyes flashed with excitement. They were not far from the end of the macro world. After about 100 years, the space was no longer empty. Instead, there was a nebula-like thing, which was formed by some particles of matter gathered together. As they continued to move deeper into the sky, the matter was no longer in the state of a nebula, but in the state of a paste. The shackles of the world's shackles were also getting more and more shocking. Su Fang and the other three demigod experts had to take out some trump cards, such as divine essence pills, divine artifacts, and divine magical abilities, to maintain their flying state. Elder Crane was the weakest, and he had been injured in the great immortal demon war. He had not recovered yet, so he gradually could not keep up with the others' speed. Pieces of matter appeared in front of Su Fang and the others. They had finally reached the end of the macro world. The four of them stepped on a piece of matter with an area of 100 feet and were about to take a break. Poof! As soon as they stepped on the matter, a majestic gravity came from under their feet. Su Fang's body swayed, and he almost lost his balance. The others were even worse. Elder Crane directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura suddenly weakened. It turned out that these seemingly ordinary pieces of matter were not only extremely hard, but they also released an extremely majestic gravity, which was more than 100 times that of the macro world. Cultivators who had not condensed a divine body would naturally find it difficult to adapt to such an environment. Even Elder Crane, a demigod expert, had suffered a great loss. Poof! 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 Venerable Tyrant Blood took out his storage ring and was about to take out a divine essence pill to recover. Who knew that under the power of the macro world and the gravity, the space in the storage ring could not withstand it and shattered. All kinds of pills, spiritual objects, and magic treasures in the storage ring, except for those that had reached the divine level, were shattered and turned into dust. Venerable Tyrant Blood was annoyed. At this time, before they had even reached the myriad heavens, they had already shown their strength to the four ascenders. The four's reverence for nature suddenly arose spontaneously, and they completely withdrew the arrogance and domineering aura of the supreme experts of the macro world. Let's enter the inner world of the divine artifact and rest for a while. The four of them discussed and decided to wait until they had recovered to their peak state before continuing. Otherwise, before they reached the transformation Supreme Tao stage, except for Su Fang, the other three would be dragged to death on the road. Elder He was injured and could not activate the divine artifact. He could only smile helplessly and said, "Su Fang Da, please help me." Su Fang thought for a while and took out a divine essence pill. It was not the kind refined by the demigod experts of the macro world, but a middle-grade divine essence pill. He had asked for it from Shin Shaoli. Su Fang was not willing to use it when he was trying to break through to the true God realm. He divided the middle-grade divine essence pill into 4 parts, one for each of them. It was not that Su Fang was reluctant to use the middle-grade divine essence pill, but the power of the pill was too overbearing. It was not something that a demigod expert could refine. Just a quarter of the middle-grade divine essence pill would take the other 300s of years to refine and absorb the power of the pill. "Thank you." Sensing the power contained in the pill, Venerable Tyrant Blood and the other two were pleasantly surprised and thanked him repeatedly. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Grand Star Ancestor took out their divine artifacts and entered the inner space of the divine artifact. Elder He sat cross-legged on the material, preparing to recover some of his strength before entering the divine artifact. Su Fang could not bear to see Elder He like this and said, "Senior, if you can't hold on, I can try to take you to the myriad heavens and then find a way to break through." Chapter 1828. Recommended reading. If Su Fang wanted to bring Elder He to the celestial realm, it would be very simple. He could just put him into his inner world. Elder He smiled bitterly. Only by walking the path of the end of the sky and going through the transformation supreme Tao can I have a chance to become a deity. If I get to the celestial realm by chance, I will lose my last chance to become a deity. Then, Elder, he looked determined. I don't have much time left. Instead of struggling at death's door in the celestial realm, I'd rather risk my life and fight. If I can make it, I will have a bright future. If I can't, I will die with no regrets. Su Fang was shocked and stopped trying to persuade him. A true cultivator's belief in reaching the peak of the great path could often overcome the fear of death. Only with such a belief could one overcome all difficulties and obstacles. Old Crane took out a rune talisman and flew to Su Fang wrapped in a mysterious light. He pleaded with Su Fang, "This rune talisman contains a strand of my consciousness. If I die midway, please take this rune talisman to the myriad of worlds. If I can take a look at the divine world, I will have fulfilled one of my wishes." Su Fang nodded and solemnly put away the rune talisman. After Elder, he refined a small part of the middle-grade divine essence pill's medicinal power. He took out a tripod-shaped divine artifact and entered the artifact's internal space to cultivate and recover. Su Fang did not enter the cavern of time. Instead, he activated the world tree and the 9 suns transformation to absorb the power of the world around him. The power of the world was the essence of the natural spiritual qi. The power of the world in the path of the end of the sky was not from the macro world, but from the celestial realm. It was very difficult for cultivators of the macro world, who cultivated using the world fragments to absorb the power of the universe. This was because the power of the universe was higher than that of the macro world. Only after passing the chaotic divine tribulation and fusing with a trace of the essence of the universe would they be able to absorb the power of the universe at an extremely slow speed. Su Fang's world tree was transformed from the integration of the world fragment and his physical body. It was not an ordinary world fragment. In addition, Su Fang's yang energy could fuse with any energy. After activating the 9 yang 9 transformations, he could fuse the power of the world into his perfect physical body. As Su Fang circulated the yang energy in his body, his perfect body absorbed the power of the world from all the worlds in the universe, perfectly fusing it with the yang energy. Then, it completely fused with his yang meridian, bloodline, bones, vital energy, and the heavenly cave in his golden core origin. At the same time, Su Fang absorbed the frost qi from the primordial chaos sacred realm. He used the power of yin and yang to fuse with the power of the world and surged into the world tree through the yang meridian. The world tree trembled violently, as if it couldn't bear the burden of obtaining world energy that was greater than that of a great world. Fusing with the world origin of the square heaven world, the milky silver-like halo formed around the world tree also trembled and shattered. However, it was also during this violent tremor that the world tree was transforming from the inside out. The halo of the galaxy was also reforming amidst the tremors and shattering. Although it had shrunk greatly, it had become even more profound and mysterious. The power of the world from all the worlds in the universe that had fused with Su Fang's power of yin and yang was fused by the world tree, turning into the power of the world of yin and yang. It was released into Su Fang's inner world, causing his inner world to be filled with the aura of all the worlds in the universe. Then, the yin and yang divine power of his inner world filled his physical body, causing all the energy in Su Fang's body to turn into the power of the world of yin and yang. In this way, the energy in Su Fang's body circulated according to the major heavenly cycle, as if it was the reincarnation of the heavenly Tao. At this moment, Su Fang's body exuded a profound and sacred aura, giving people the feeling that he was the embodiment of the starry sky. However, even so, Su Fang faced the power of the world from all the worlds in the universe, and it was only the power of the world that seeped in from the borders of the universe and the great world. Su Fang was still so insignificant. The range of the divine power of the world was only about 10 feet. I've returned to the level of a weakling. Su Fong smiled bitterly. Although he had long known that after entering the universe, everything would have to start from scratch, and he had long been mentally prepared, when he truly felt that he had fallen from a supreme expert to a weakling, this feeling still made Su Fong feel somewhat disappointed. How can I, Su Fong, be a fish in a pond? When I enter the universe, I can still climb step by step from the lowest level of cultivators to the peak of the universe. Su Fong revealed strong self-confidence and a domineering aura that feared nothing. He had rested for about 50 years in the material world. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The true text of the mysterious solution of heaven's expansion suddenly erupted in the depths of his mind, indicating that a huge crisis was about to descend. On the path to the end of the world, what other dangers can there be other than the natural threats of heaven and earth? Su Fong could not help but be aghast, and hurriedly activated the Great Perfection ability. On the path to the end of the world, the Great Perfection ability was also suppressed to a pitiful extent, with only a range of 10,000 feet. Under the perception of the Great Perfection ability, he saw monsters that looked a bit like jackals and the great world's desolation, word, asphyxiation, hypocrisy, sarong, milled stone, search. Do you have a compulsive fetish? Liu mi liu? Over 100 desolates? Empress, yes, sure you? She. Do you want to chase them away? Shortcut? Sparrow? Lan jiao gu wei. Huan? Bayan lan rain? Torrential rain? Speaking of milk consumption? Feishi? Niece of the nunnery embroidered with bright colors? Shu, a resurrected famine? Li square root yang is almost equal to? Flying Xia Valley is going to change to nephew Yuan with the surname Cheng? Solenopsis. With Su Fong's current strength, he naturally wasn't afraid of these resurrected monsters. What worried Su Fong was that there was a resurrected desolation barging into Zheng? Chiggy. Kunzang chopping squid frame. One had to know that from ancient times until now, there were countless experts who had fallen on the road to the end of the sky. If they were to encounter a group of resurrected experts, it would be rather bad. No wonder Shinja Tianjun said that with Su Fong's strength, the success rate of entering the God realm through the path to the end of the sky was only 30%. It turned out that the path to the end of the sky was not only filled with natural dangers, but also resurrected experts. Su Fong immediately called out overbearing blood venerable, Grand Star Ancestor, and Old Crane. Did you see those resurrected desolates? Is this a tragic delicacy wrapped around the palm tree Huan Rue? Do you think that the Buddhist coin is made of Huan gingiva, and that the Buddhist coin is made of Huan gingiva? Machini, Chunyu? Leg Alliance? Wall hires to guard against Merue? Charcoal was a warning to the others? Looking at the mother spring plutonium and handsome plutonium? Quietly cutting a piece of cloth? Rugged and aggressive? Punishment, you want me to take you away from these resurrected wastelands? Slowly chew, overbearing? Punishment? Routed? Stomp on the bucket? To play with Su Fong didn't hesitate to release the world's divine might, enveloping the three of them. Then, he controlled the world's power and flew into the sky. Porcelain playing with pepper? These resurrected desolates? Picky crab Shang Xin? Moxibustion Theta Chong? Play? Hui pulled out the old peony? Masturbate? Yu Huang Qiao rolled over Xin ship. Shi Huang Qiao, 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 Kwai, looking at the ferocious and terrifying resurrected desolate below. Vulture fever? Insignia wood? Luck rolling reef? Chiao Chen? Meng Peng Du Wu? Carbonyl and transport? Qianying bandits? Jesus Christ. Huang Lao was miserable? Patrol Officer E? What's wrong with the stool? To be unforgiving as expected, he continuously encountered revived experts, their strength far exceeding that of the first Huang he encountered. What? Female carries of Jiqianwei? Canning sex oarfish? Robber by Jia? Invading finger-grabbing Su Fang had to activate the divine secret life shrinking technique, and at the same time, cooperate with the perfect ability to sense the existence of the resurrected experts in advance, and then avoid them far away. Su Fang gradually couldn't take it anymore, and had to find a place to stop and rest. Fortunately, Su Fang's family was very rich. In addition to middle-grade divine essence pills and blood crystals, he didn't lack other kinds of medicinal pills and spiritual items used to recover true qi, yang force, and life force. Coupled with the devouring ability of the Time Cavern and the Underworld Blood Sea, as well as the recovery ability of the Black Lotus Real Body, the Dragon Subduing Real Body, and the Blood Transformation Real Body, although the recovery speed couldn't keep up with the big world, it was still extremely amazing. Another 50 years passed. The four of them stepped on an endless material, which was the place where the myriad worlds and the big world bordered. The end of the world finally arrived. The four of them were invigorated, and they found a secluded place. After activating the rune talisman Su Fang created with the divine secret life shrinking technique, it released the power of destiny and concealed their aura. Only then could the four of them rest at ease and recover. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Elder Crane had used up all their divine essence pills, spiritual items, and resources that contained divine power. Although they wanted to borrow them from Su Fang, they couldn't say it. Ancestor Grandstar directly said, "Su Fang, can I borrow one of your previous divine essence pills? When we go to the myriad worlds in the future, I'll return it tenfold." Su Fang raised his eyebrows slightly, but didn't say anything. He took out a middle-grade divine essence pill and divided it into 4, giving each of them a portion. Su Fang noticed that there was a hint of greed in Ancestor Grandstar's eyes when he saw the middle-grade divine essence pill. Although it was very subtle, it couldn't escape Su Fang's perfect eyesight. Grandstar Hall is the #1 chamber of commerce in the big world. In terms of wealth, it's far richer than the Tianming Haizang sect. As the ancestor of Grandstar Hall, how could he not be fully prepared when he ascends to the big world? Maybe he also has a middle-grade divine essence pill, but he still covets my divine essence pill. He's indeed a businessman. Moreover, Ancestor Grandstar is very mysterious and scheming. It's hard to be a good person, so I have to be careful of him. Su Fang was secretly vigilant, but he didn't show it on his face. This time, the four of them spent nearly 100 years refining all the medicinal power of the middle-grade divine essence pill and adjusting their strength to peak condition. Su Fang used this part of the world to absorb a lot of world power. However, the changes in the Tree of World were not as great as the first time it absorbed the world power of the myriad world. Physically, with the resurrection wings hovering around the big goblin, the four of them had to walk for the rest of the journey. When they encountered resurrected experts, they had to take a detour, so they spent a lot of time. A huge void vortex appeared in front of the four of them. Transformation Supreme Tao. Chapter 1829. The Transformation Supreme Tao Path. It was not only a passage from the macro world to the other realms, but also an important place for immortals to transform into immortals. Cultivators from the macro world had to go through the Transformation Supreme Tao Path if they wanted to transform into immortals, in addition to some special means in the other realms. Just like how mortals needed to fuse with spiritual roots to transform into immortals, before entering the Transformation Supreme Tao Path, they had to collect an extremely important divine object, which was the Godhead. Simply put, the Godhead was the qualification to become a immortal. Only after fusing with the Godhead could one enter the Transformation Supreme Tao Path and use the energy tide of the macro world to cleanse the body and become a yang immortal, condensing the divine body and yang spirit. Only then could one enter the other realms, go through the chaotic divine tribulation, and become a real immortal. In the macro world, Cultivators who had already gone through the chaotic divine tribulation would collect higher-level Godheads, and it would be easier for them to fuse with the Godhead. The cleansing effect of the transformation supreme Tao path would be better, and their cultivation talent would naturally be higher. They would be able to go further on the path of cultivation in the future. Su Feng, overbearing blood venerable, grand star ancestor, an elder, he could not go through the chaotic divine tribulation in the macro world, so the transformation supreme Tao path was extremely important to them. The transformation supreme Tao path was close at hand, so they were excited and nervous. Is this the transformation supreme Tao path? Looking at the boundless void vortex, the four of them were dumbfounded and fell into a state of intense shock. Starlight flashed in the vortex, as if the galaxy was hanging upside down and flowing endlessly, releasing a terrifying power that could swallow the world. The power of the world, the power of the void, and other forces were all sucked into the vortex. Su Feng was more than 100 miles away from the edge of the vortex, but he could still feel the extraordinary suction force. Not only his body, but even his primordial spirit and genuine qi were shackled and attracted by the suction force. His body involuntarily moved toward the vortex, and even his consciousness seemed to be sealed by the terrifying aura in the vortex, making his consciousness blurry. In front of such a terrifying natural force, not to mention the cultivators from the macro world, even the experts from the deity realm were as small as ants. The four of them steadied themselves and guarded their Taoist hearts, barely resisting the terrifying force. The four of them soon discovered that from the center of the vortex, an astonishing 7-colored light would spurt out every 6 hours. Within the multicolored light there were bubbles. The bubbles wrapped around a bamboo-like object. Some were only the size of a finger, while others were a foot long. The luster they emitted was also completely different. Godhood! That's a godhead. Venerable tyrant blood, grand star patriarch, and Elder Crane's eyes glittered like starving beggars who suddenly saw a sumptuous meal. Su Feng's heart was also pounding, but he was far less excited than the other three. Why was that? Su Feng cultivated the 9 suns' 9 transformations, and connected with the world fragments to form the supreme heavenly Tao. That was why he had a godhood. Therefore, Su Feng had cultivated the Godhead on his own and had long possessed the qualifications to become a deity. In the great world, it was almost impossible for a Godhead to appear in the body of an immortal. Su Feng could be said to be the only one who could cultivate a Godhead. Therefore, Su Feng wasn't very enthusiastic about the Godhead that was born naturally in the transformation supreme Tao. At that moment, Luo's voice came from the time cave abode in his body. Su Feng, not only do you have to collect the Godheads, but you also have to do your best to collect the highest quality ones. Su Feng was surprised. Luo, why is that? Your Godhead was formed through cultivation. Although it is naturally compatible with you, it still needs to constantly devour the natural essence of heaven and earth in order to become stronger. It's like a baby. No matter how strong it is when it is born, it still needs to be nurtured in order to become stronger. I see. Unlike spiritual roots, the Godhead must be compatible with the great Tao that you cultivate to better integrate with your body. The higher the quality, the better your cultivation talent in the future. Godheads are divided into 4 grades: heaven, earth, black, and yellow. I cultivate the supreme heavenly Tao. Do I need a heaven Godhead? In order to ascend to the heavens, Su Feng had made sufficient preparations in advance. He had checked all kinds of ancient books and had a deep understanding of Godheads. The Godheads that he saw spurting out from the transformation supreme Tao appeared randomly and might not necessarily be suitable for every cultivator. If he wanted to collect a Godhead that was completely compatible with his great Tao, he had to be close to the transformation supreme Tao and release his aura with all his strength to sense the Godhead that was compatible with him. Then, he had to draw it out from the transformation supreme Tao. There were thousands of great Taos, and each great Tao had a corresponding Godhead. It was incomparably wonderful. Moreover, Godheads of the same great Tao were also divided into different grades. Godheads were divided into 4 grades: heaven, earth, black, and yellow. Each grade was further divided into 4 grades: low, middle, high, and extreme. The low yellow grade was the lowest, and the top heaven grade was the highest. You cultivated the heaven and earth Tao palace through cultivation. I really don't know what great Tao you can draw out from the transformation supreme Tao and what quality Godhead it will be. Lua wasn't sure what kind of Godhead Su Fang could get, but he was full of expectations for Su Fang. I have to at least get an earth-grade Godhead. It would be best if I can collect a low heaven-grade Godhead. Su Fang's eyes flashed with determination. His goal wasn't high. He would be happy if he could get an earth-grade Godhead. He would be surprised if he could get a heaven-grade Godhead. It wasn't easy to get a Godhead that was highly compatible with his great Tao and of high quality. To collect a Godhead, he had to be close to the transformation supreme Tao. If he was too close, he would be sucked into the transformation supreme Tao. If he entered the transformation supreme Tao before fusing with the Godhead, his primordial spirit would be forcefully pulled out from his body by the terrifying power of the transformation supreme Tao. His body would also be crushed into pieces. If he was too far away, it would be difficult to draw out a high-quality Godhead. Therefore, collecting a Godhead was also a severe test for a cultivator. At the same time, it was also a test of his talent and strength. The Godhead was related to his future on the path of cultivation after he became a true God. At this time, even if he had to risk his life, he had to give it his all to win a great future for himself. The 4 of them were all top figures in the great world. They naturally understood that the more important the matter was, the calmer they had to be. The opportunity to ascend to the heavens was right in front of them. Although the 4 of them were anxious, they were still patient. They hid where they were and took out elixirs and spiritual items to recover quickly. This time, Su Fang used another middle-grade divine essence elixir. Although Ancestor Hongxing thanked him repeatedly, he didn't take out his own elixir. Although Su Fang was well aware of this, he did not say anything. Although people like Grand Star Ancestor were very scheming, their vision was too narrow, and they were at a disadvantage. Even if they succeeded in becoming a true god, their future achievements would be limited. The 4 of them rested for about 150 years. All of them had recovered to their peak state. Even Elder Crane had sealed his previous injuries with a forbidden spell. He was ready to fight with all his strength. Su Fang used the 100 years to absorb a lot of world power. However, the world power here was very thin. With Su Fang's current cultivation, even with the world tree, the speed at which he absorbed the world power was very slow. However, Su Fang's young immortal had gained a lot from cultivating the undying soul canon. He had cultivated his primordial spirit in the time cave abode for more than 1,000 years. Not only had his primordial spirit power improved, but his young immortal's transformation had also become more intense. His second primordial spirit cultivated the undying soul canon several times faster than Su Fang. He had also mastered the primordial spirit forbidden spell of the undying soul canon, charming God soul absorption seal. Law was also cultivating the undying soul canon. As the Azura Divine clan wasn't good at primordial spirit cultivation, his cultivation speed was slower than Su Fang's. However, the damage to his primordial spirit, caused by burning his primordial spirit origin in the 10,000 demons ancient world, was slowly recovering. The 3 Liao brothers, Demon Sage Greenfeather, Huang Lingyao, and the others were all in Su Fang's inner world. 100 years was nothing to cultivators. The 4 of them activated their protective aura and carefully approached the bottom of the transformation supreme Tao path. They only stopped when they were only 1,000 feet away from the center of the vortex. Any closer and they might be sucked into the transformation supreme Tao path. Boom! The center of the vortex spurted out again. Su Fang activated his great perfection ability to the extreme. They could vaguely see 3 bubbles in the light. There were 3 godhoods in the bubbles. One contained the energy of the great Tao of earth and the profundity of the laws. The other one was of the fire element and the last one was of the wood element. The quality wasn't very high. The highest fire element godhood was only of the high-grade yellow class. The other 2 were of the low-grade yellow class. Whoosh! A resurrected cultivator and a terrifying giant zombie wolf rushed out from the substance below and pounced toward the light. These 2 resurrected overlords had reached the level of a demigod. Judging from their violent and ferocious aura, they weren't ordinary demigod overlords. They were only a step away from the divine level. The resurrected overlords are also fighting for the godhoods. The hearts of Su Fang and the others suddenly sank. If the resurrected overlords were fighting for the godhoods, the difficulty of obtaining the godhoods would be doubled. Now it seemed that the transformation supreme Tao path was not only a place of opportunity and fortune for immortals to become deities, but also a place of great danger where they could die at any time. Su Fang sent a message to Law with his essence soul. Law, why are these resurrected overlords fighting for the godhoods? Law replied, the godhoods contain the life energy of all the worlds in the universe, as well as a trace of pure world origin essence chi. There are also mysterious profundities of the great Tao hidden in them. Now you understand why the resurrected overlords are fighting for the godhoods, right? Hiss. Su Fang sucked in a cold breath. The resurrected overlords devoured the life energy to become stronger, so they naturally rushed for the godhoods. Moreover, the godhoods also contained the world origin essence chi of all the worlds in the universe, as well as the profundities of the great Tao. After being devoured by the resurrected overlords, no one knew what kind of changes would occur. Whoosh! A figure with a violent aura of death rushed out of the void. It was a resurrected ferocious beast. Boom! The resurrected ferocious beast directly knocked the resurrected cultivator and the zombie wolf away. The resurrected cultivator was sent flying out of the central area of the vortex. Evil death energy burst out from his body as he broke free from the shackles of the transformation supreme Tao path. Chapter 1830. The ferocious pygma swallowed the 3 godheads in one gulp. Its body was shrouded in light as it floated there motionlessly. Less than or equal to 8, less than or equal to 8, less than or equal to read, less than or equal to book? Square root Su Fang sensed that the ferocious pygma's aura was rapidly changing. In addition to the strong aura of death, there was also the aura of the grand Tao of fire, earth, and wood. Su Fang was inwardly shocked. Resurrected experts can not only devour the life force within the Godhead, but also fuse with the quintessence of the myriad worlds within the Godhead. It can even fuse with grand Tao profundities, and 3 completely different grand Tao profundities. When a cultivator integrated a Godhead, the grand Tao they cultivated would allow them to integrate the corresponding Godhead. The life force and world essence in other Godheads could also be integrated, but it was difficult to obtain the grand Tao within. This ferocious pygma swallowed 3 godheads in one gulp and integrated them all. How could Su Fang not be shocked? A faint voice came from Law's time cavern. This should be the result of the changes in the world. The power of the heavenly Tao of the myriad worlds has also been infected by the evil power, so it allows the resurrected powerhouses to fuse with different godhoods. Su Fang was shocked. After integrating multiple godheads, won't the resurrected powerhouse also have the ability to communicate with the heavenly Tao and use all kinds of divine abilities? That may not be so. Cultivating the grand Tao is not so easy. The resurrected powerhouse only has a violent and chaotic consciousness left. It is impossible for them to cultivate the grand Tao like cultivators. At most, they can only draw on some of the divine aura of nature, mainly the aura of death. Even the heavenly Tao is contaminated by the evil force. If there is another blood sun in the sky, won't all the heavenly Tao's laws change? If that is the case, how can cultivators cultivate? I'm afraid it's not that simple. Even I can't figure out the changes in heaven and earth, let alone you. Don't worry too much, wait until you become the Supreme Emperor, then you can worry about these things. Supreme Emperor? Is the Supreme Emperor the supreme existence among the deities? Law, tell me about the deities' realm. Seeing that the resurrected Ma Pig was still fusing with the divinity, Su Fang began to ask Law about the heavenly realm. You're about to enter the myriad realms, so it's good to tell you about it. Luo Man agreed, and then slowly explained to Su Fang. In the beginning, the multiverse wasn't like it is now, Yang Qi said. It was a primal chaos universe formed by pure energy that floated up after the creation of heaven and earth. Later, some of the almighty gods among the gods created god worlds in the primal chaos universe, forming star systems, galaxies, and planet. Over the course of countless years, the multiverse was gradually formed. Just like the immortal world, there are ordinary mortals in the myriad worlds. However, due to the difference in bloodline, physique, and growing environment, the mortals in the myriad worlds are naturally countless times stronger than the mortals in the myriad world. Deity is just a general term. The cultivators of the god realm comprehend the way of heaven, and after passing the chaotic divine tribulation, they condense a divine body and yang spirit. That's when they become true gods. True God is the first major realm of the deity. Like the other realms in the myriad worlds, it's divided into 9 steps, called the 9 heavens. My clan's traitor, Sanghan, is a 3rd heaven's true god. The god of the seal heaven divine path, God Mizar God Monarch, is almost at the 9th heavens of true God. He's considered an expert, but not a powerful one. He's called God Monarch, but he only dares to call himself that in front of the cultivators of the myriad worlds. If he dares to call himself that in the God realm, it's simply a joke. Above the 9th heavens of true God are the more powerful existences among the deities, and that's the heavenly God realm. The slaughter doppelganger of the Blood River Lord that descended to the myriad worlds is almost at the 1st heavens of heavenly God realm. I won't say much about those above the heavenly God realm, lest you become fearful and affect your cultivation in the future. Su Fang asked curiously, Luo, what was your cultivation before your physical body and primordial spirit were separated? My cultivation. Haha, even heavenly gods are ant-like existences. Su Fang was quite surprised. Then how big is the gap between you and the sovereign realm? Luo was speechless for a while. There's a bit of a gap. It's almost the difference between the cave immortal realm and the Tao realm. Just as Su Fang and Luo were conversing, many resurrected experts appeared and madly attacked the ferocious boar god. However, the ferocious boar god was protected by the multicolored light, as if it was protected by the heavenly Tao. No matter how the resurrected experts attacked, they could not shake the protection of the multicolored light. At most, the multicolored light trembled a little. On the other hand, the ferocious boar god in the multicolored light spewed out waves of demonic chi and deathly chi through the protection, killing several resurrected experts. So the multicolored light of the Godhead has the power to protect, but attacks can be released from within the light. Su Fang and the other 3 all saw this scene. About 3 days later, Roar, the ferocious boar god let out a roar, shaking the surrounding shackles and causing the multicolored light on its body to disappear. The ferocious boar god was originally a demigod, but now its aura had surpassed the limit of the great world and reached the divine realm. However, its aura was not stable and seemed very chaotic. Obviously, it had not been completely integrated and needed to rely on the energy tide of the transformation Supreme Tao path to completely integrate the Godhead. Whoosh! The resurrected ferocious boar god went straight to the transformation Supreme Tao path, allowing the whirlpool to swallow it. It disappeared without a trace, and no one knew whether it was dead or alive. The other resurrected experts also retreated, and the central area of the transformation Supreme Tao path became empty. There were still countless resurrected experts wandering around the huge whirlpool of the transformation Supreme Tao path, eyeing the center of the whirlpool covetously. Venerable Tyrant Blood and the others could not sit still. Su Fangda, or do you want to go first? Venerable Tyrant Blood asked Su Fang. Ancestor Grand Star and Old Crane also looked at Su Fang. The three of them could not wait, but they were still rational. Letting Su Fang collect the Godhead first was out of respect for the expert. In addition, the first person to collect the Godhead would be in less danger of being attacked by the resurrected experts than those who came later. However, the first person to collect the Godhead could be regarded as a demonstration for those who came later, and they could learn from it. One by one, and the remaining three will protect me. Senior, you go first. Su Fang made arrangements and let Old Crane collect the Godhead first. Among the four of them, Old Crane was the weakest, and he had contributed greatly in the great immortal demon war. Su Fang respected this person, so he gave him the first chance. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Ancestor Grand Star naturally had no objections to Su Fang's arrangement. Thank you. Old Crane was very happy and thanked Su Fang with cupped fists. Remember to be fast. Let's go. Su Fang released the power of the world and wrapped the other three people. At that moment, Su Fang's power of the world had covered an area of 10 meters. Under the terrifying suction force of the transformation Supreme Tao stage, it was very easy to carry the three people. At the same time, Su Fang slightly activated the life-shrinking technique and merged it with the power of the world to conceal the aura of the four people. The resurrected experts mainly relied on the aura of life to sense their target. Under the power of the life-shrinking technique, it was difficult to sense the existence of the four people. They were not discovered until the four of them reached the center of the whirlpool. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Hundreds of resurrected experts, the weakest of whom was at the peak of the Tao realm, rushed toward the four people crazily. Stop the resurrected experts! Su Fang shouted coldly and swept Old Crane out of the power of the world. Then, he joined forces with Venerable Tyrant Blood and Ancestor Grand Star to protect Old Crane. Boom! 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 The resurrected experts rushed into the coverage of Su Fang's power of the world, causing the power of the world to shatter layer by layer. However, it also successfully blocked the most violent attacks of the resurrected expert. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Ancestor Grand Star both activated their divine magic treasures. Venerable Tyrant Blood's magic treasure was an extremely domineering divine saber with surging blood chi. Wherever the saber light swept out, it drew an arc of blood light and cut the resurrected experts into pieces. On the other hand, Ancestor Grand Star activated a magic treasure in the shape of a rui. After activating it, it released a peaceful aura. Ancestor Grand Star seemed to be protected by an invisible force that eliminated any killing intent directed at him. As a result, the resurrected experts seemed to ignore his existence. Ancestor Grand Star actually wants to preserve his strength. How shameless! Su Fang could not help but feel hatred for Ancestor Grand Star. This was just the beginning. In order to preserve his strength, Su Fang did not activate his divine ability or magic treasure. Instead, he released the three Liao brothers from his inner world. The three Liao brothers were gods in the universe. Their strength had reached the third sky of true God realm. Moreover, they cultivated the Tao of archery. When the three brothers worked together, they could kill experts in the fourth sky. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The three Liao brothers did not use any powerful divine ability or divine weapon to deal with these resurrected experts. Instead, they directly unleashed their arrow intent, forming a storm-like momentum. Like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves, the resurrected experts' bodies were shattered under the torrent of arrow intent. Hundreds of resurrected experts instantly became sparse. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Ancestor Grand Star were shocked and horrified. Their eyes were filled with awe, not only toward the three Liao brothers but also toward Su Fang. These three true gods were so powerful, and Su Fang was able to subdue them. How shocking was his strength! Elder He was greatly energized. He released his life aura and his cultivation to sense the depths of the transformation supreme Tao path. About the time it took for an incense stick to burn past, Elder He frowned and looked disappointed. Apparently, he was too far away from the transformation supreme Tao path, and his strength was relatively weak. He could not draw out the godhead that was compatible with him. Therefore, Elder He activated his genuine qi and continued to move forward into the depths of the transformation supreme Tao path. After moving forward for another 1,000 feet, Elder He reached his limit. If he continued to go deeper, he might be sucked into the transformation supreme Tao path and his divine soul would be destroyed. Qi, a godhead shrouded in multicolored light and flashing with a green xianguang, was pulled out by Elder He's aura and shot out from the depths of the transformation supreme Tao path. Chapter 1831. Elder He grabbed the godhead with a look of ecstasy on his face. Initially, Huang Xiaolong thought that being able to draw out the lowest grade low-grade yellow-rank godhead was already a blessing to him. He didn't expect that he would draw out a high-grade yellow-rank godhead. How could he not be overjoyed? Because he was too excited, Elder He lost control of his body for a moment. He was sucked into the depths of the transformation supreme Tao realm for a distance of 10,000 feet. He was so scared that he hurriedly channeled his magic power, genuine qi, and life aura into the light. The multicolored light immediately spread toward his body, wrapping him up and forming a bubble. Finally, the suction force was blocked outside. He's really lucky to be able to collect a high-grade yellow-rank godhead. Su Fang was also gratified for Elder He. However, Luo's vital spirit's voice poured cold water on Su Fang's enthusiasm. This person's strength and luck are good, but he has injuries. When he fuses with the godhead, he must remove the seal on his injuries. Maybe before he can fuse with the godhead, he won't be able to withstand the power of the godhead and his injuries will worsen. He may even die on the spot. Su Fang was silent for a while. On the road of cultivation, every step was difficult and dangerous. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. Whether Elder He could successfully fuse with the godhead would depend on his own luck. Overbearing Blood Venerable, it's your turn. Su Fang said to Overbearing Blood Venerable. Overbearing Blood Venerable had been anxious for a long time. When he heard Su Fang's order, he immediately flew toward the depths of the transformation supreme Tao path excitedly. When he reached the limit of his endurance, he released his aura into the transformation supreme Tao path. As soon as Overbearing Blood Venerable left, Ancestor Hongxing said, Su Fang, there are 3 experts from the God realm here. I won't be of much use here. Why don't I go and collect godheads? Before Su Fang agreed, Ancestor Hongxing flew toward the transformation supreme Tao path with the help of the suction force. Su Fang's eyes exuded a trace of coldness. At this time, there were more and more resurrected experts. They were densely packed like locusts, flocking toward them without fear of death. Even with the strength of the Liao brothers, they felt that it was extremely strenuous. They had no choice but to take out their divine bows to stop the resurrected expert. Furthermore, they were unable to communicate with the natural spiritual energy of heaven and earth in this place to recover. Furthermore, the 3 Liao brothers did not cultivate the power of the world, so the 3 of them could not hold on for too long. Ancestor Grandstar's sudden retreat had caused a gap in the defense. More than a dozen revived experts rushed toward Venerable Tyrant Blood. Although they were successfully killed by the arrow intent released by the eldest brother of the Liao family, the entire defense line became chaotic. Second Primordial Spirit. Su Fang had no choice but to let his second Yuan Shen unleash the godly aura of the Yuan Shen from his divine aperture, forming a surging wave of Yuan Shen. The primordial spirit power of his second primordial spirit had roughly reached the height of a third firmament true God realm deity. How astonishing was its power! As the power of the primordial spirit swept across, the violent consciousness of the resurrected experts was instantly wiped out. Large swaths of them were annihilated. In the end, they were sucked into the transformation supreme Tao and crushed into pieces. Master is so mighty! The three brothers of the Liao family were all shocked. The second brother of the Liao family seized the opportunity to flatter Su Fang. Master, you go and collect the godheads. We three brothers will hold them off for a while. The eldest brother of the Liao family shouted. The three of you be careful. I will let my second primordial spirit help you. The second primordial spirit, which was residing in the black mark, turned into a black Xian Guang and shot out from between Su Fang's eyebrows. Su Fang no longer controlled his body, and allowed the terrifying suction force of the transformation supreme Tao to pull him into the depths of the whirlpool. At that moment, venerable tyrant blood had successfully extracted a godhead. It was a medium black-grade godhead that had the aura of a sovereign. Venerable tyrant blood was ecstatic. Ancestor Grand Star reached a depth of 3,000 feet into the whirlpool. He was almost at the same level as Old Crane, who was fusing with the godheads. Only then did he stabilize his body. He was more than 4,000 feet deeper than Venerable Tyrant Blood. The deeper he went, the higher the quality of the godhead he could sense and extract. Ancestor Grand Star had actually concealed his strength all this time and had only revealed it at this moment. This showed how shrewd he was. As for whether or not he would offend Su Fang, Ancestor Grand Star no longer had any scruples at this critical moment when it concerned his future cultivation. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I must seize it. The godhead I will collect will be at least a high black-grade godhead. Ancestor Grand Star's eyes flashed with determination. He took out an elixir. It was a medium-grade divine essence elixir. After crushing it into powder, he swallowed half of it. Then, he activated a forbidden technique to forcibly refine a portion of the elixir's medicinal power and release his aura. Whoosh! Under the guidance of Ancestor Grand Star's aura, a ray of light wrapped around a godhead and shot out from the depths of the transformation supreme Tao. This godhead gave off an aura of peace and tranquility. It flickered with a star-like radiance, and it also carried a strand of luck. Low Earth-grade godhead. Ha ha! My luck is indeed heaven-defying. I actually managed to collect a low Earth-grade godhead. My reincarnation into the lower realm was not in vain. Ha ha! When I integrate this low Earth-grade godhead, I will also have a chance to become the master of the stellar region. Ancestor Grand Star laughed wildly. As soon as his voice left his mouth, it was absorbed by the surrounding devouring power and disappeared without a trace. Ancestor Grand Star began to integrate the godhead without hesitation. At this time, Su Fang had also entered the depths of the transformation supreme Tao. He did not deliberately control his body. With a whoosh, he flew toward the center of the vortex like a bolt of lightning. In an instant, he traversed thousands of feet and left Ancestor Grand Star behind him. Su Fang dares to be so unscrupulous in the transformation supreme Tao. He is really bold. I wonder what kind of godhead he will integrate with. Ancestor Grand Star was shocked. He looked at Su Fang with undisguised jealousy. 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet, 50,000 feet. When Su Fang reached the depths of the vortex and was about to touch the surrounding terrifying energy tides, he suddenly unleashed the power of his inner world. In the transformation supreme Tao, the power of the world was also distorted and devoured. Su Fang activated his inner world and released the power of the world. It exploded with the momentum of the opening of heaven and earth and the operation of the heavenly way. It barely resisted the terrifying devouring and attracting power. However, under the power of the surrounding void vortex, the power of Su Fang's inner world shattered and collapsed layer by layer. His physical body was also trembling. Even his consciousness seemed to be sealed by the terrifying aura of the vortex. It became blurry and difficult to control. Godhead that belongs to me, come out! All of Su Fang's power, blood, and qi were injected into the Yang Meridian and the Tree of World. They merged into his inner world, and he instantly turned into a universe. What kind of divine power is Su Fang using? It has the aura of the heavenly way? What kind of godhead will his godhead be? Venerable Tyrant Blood and Grand Star Ancestor, who were wrapped in light, looked at Su Fang. Only Elder he had his eyes closed and his body was trembling. He was at the critical moment of integrating the godhead. Just as Luo had expected, when Elder he was integrating the godhead, the seal on his body exploded like a flash flood. He was like a seriously ill person who had suddenly taken a tonic. It was difficult for him to bear for a while. Once he lost control, he would die. 2 hours passed. The aura that Su Fang released turned out to be like a stone sinking into the sea. It was difficult for him to find the godhead that was suitable for him. The inner world that he had turned into trembled under the terrifying devouring and distorting power of the void vortex. The Tree of World and the Yang Meridian appeared. The universe was in turmoil, and it seemed that it would not be able to hold on for long. The aura that I'm releasing is not strong enough, so it's difficult to sense my godhead. Su Fang moved his mind and a complete middle-grade divine essence elixir appeared in the inner world. The divine essence elixir immediately shattered and turned into majestic divine power, which was absorbed by the Tree of World and the Yang Meridian. The inner world quickly stabilized and an even stronger aura of the Way of Heaven suddenly burst out, extending deeper into the transformation supreme path. 4 hours, 6 hours passed by. There was still no movement. Venerable Tyrant Blood was shocked and Ancestral Patriarch Hongxing was surprised and mocking. The two of them immediately stopped paying attention to Su Fang and focused on integrating the godhead. The 3 brothers of the Liao family and the second primordial spirit were struggling to resist the tide of resurrected overlords. Another 4 hours passed. A blood crystal, a middle-grade divine essence elixir and tens of thousands of king-grade divine essence elixirs appeared in the inner world created by Su Fang. They shattered under the aura of the Way of Heaven and turned into shocking blood energy, divine power and yin and yang energy, which quickly merged with the inner world. An extremely majestic aura burst out of the inner world and spread in all directions of the transformation supreme path. There was a moment of silence. Boom! The entire enormous void vortex shook violently, and then a glaring ray of light that was more than 3 meters long shot out from the endless depths of the transformation supreme path. Venerable Tyrant Blood and Ancestral Patriarch Hongxing, who were integrating the godheads, suddenly opened their eyes. They were extremely shocked when they saw this scene. There was a gray godhead that was more than 3 feet long in the ray of light. This godhead didn't have any luster, and they couldn't tell what kind of great Tao it contained. It didn't belong to the 6 most basic great Tao of heaven and earth: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and thunder. It also didn't belong to any great Tao such as the Sword Tao, the Sovereign Tao, or the Array Tao. However, it gave people the feeling that this godhead contained any great Tao in the world. The Great Tao of Earth, the Sword Tao, the Realm Lord Tao, the Sovereign Tao, the Pill Tao, the Artifact Tao, the Array Tao, the Primordial Spirit Tao, the Physical Tao, the Space Tao, the Time Tao, and many other great Tao. It was all-encompassing and all-inclusive. Su Fang was also shocked and stunned. He said to Luo with his primordial spirit, "Luo, what kind of godhead is this? It should be Earth-grade, right? What kind of godhead is this?" Luo replied with his primordial spirit, "It's not among the heaven, earth, black, and yellow godheads. What kind of strange godhead is this? This is a top-grade heaven-grade godhead, the legendary chaos-grade godhead." Chapter 1832. Godhood was divided into heaven level, earth level, profound level, and yellow level. And now there was a primal chaos level Godhood, one that transcended the heavens. It wasn't just Su Fang who had never heard of it. Even Law had never heard of it. After all, Law was from the Sura God tribe, not a human cultivator. Therefore, his understanding of cultivation couldn't compare to Shu Wanzhen's. Su Fang wondered what good fortune Shu Wan had come across. Not only had she acquired the heavenly workings life-shrinking art, but she also had the 9 transformations of the 9 suns. She seemed to be very knowledgeable, and seemed to be omniscient. Elder sister, Su Fang said, "What's primal chaos level Godhood?" What's primal chaos? According to the legends, in ancient times, before heaven and earth were created, heaven and earth were nothing but nothingness. Worlds, life, matter, and magical laws were all born out of primal chaos. Because of that, primal chaos is the essence of heaven and earth, higher than worlds. It's the essence of worlds and the Tao of heaven. Gathering Godheads is nothing more than obtaining the recognition of the heavenly Tao and the qualifications to become a god. The higher the quality of the Godhead, the higher the degree of recognition of the heavenly Tao, and the higher the accomplishments on the path of cultivation in the future. The fact that you can sense primal chaos level Godhood from the incarnated God Tao means that you've gained the approval of the Tao of heaven. Your future accomplishments are limitless. Shu Wanzhen's words seemed to make sense to Su Fang. Although primal chaos level Godhood sounded impressive, to Su Fang, it didn't seem to have any practical significance. Therefore, Su Fang asked, "What benefits will I get from absorbing this primal chaos level Godhood?" Benefits? That's way too many. Cultivation is about humans constantly pursuing the essence of heaven and earth and the universe. They want to understand heaven and earth and nature, and then control nature and the stars. They want to become stronger and surpass the limits of life. They want to reach the legendary level of immortality and indestructibility. Cultivators absorb the natural energy of heaven and earth, and then fuse it with their fleshly body. That's true energy. Mortal cultivators from minor worlds, immortals from major worlds, and even deities from the myriad of heavens are all the same. The only difference is that the amount of natural energy they absorb and cultivate is different. That's all. The power of the world is the essence of nature. It is higher than natural spiritual energy. Thus, a world lord who cultivates the power of the world can surpass the majority of cultivators and stand at the peak. However, there is another type of power that transcends the Milky Way beyond this world. That is the power of chaos. Deities have to go through the divine tribulation of primal chaos time and time again, and it is precisely because of the primal chaos power within the divine tribulation, which is also the purification of the essence of the world, that deities can continuously strengthen their ability to survive in the primal chaos. Cultivators who control the power of primal chaos don't just surpass countless cultivators, they also surpass the realm lords of various god realms, and even the domain lords and divine lords. Possessing a primal chaos divine spark also meant that you had the ability to communicate with the primal chaos. Thus, you had the qualifications to surpass realm lords, region lords, and god lords. Only those supreme existences would possess a primal chaos divine spark. Su Fang was astounded. A primal chaos grade godhead is actually so powerful? Of course, this only gives you more qualifications than the vast majority of cultivators. Whether or not you can reach the legendary peak is still very slim. Any uncertain factor can cause you to fall. Of course, the benefits that a primal chaos divine spark brings to you are far more than that. What is primal chaos? It contains all matter, energy, grand Tao laws, and all life forms. Since you've fused with a primal chaos divine spark, you can communicate with the primal chaos power. Every power born from the primal chaos and every grand Tao law comprehended from it can be controlled by you. This is the supreme talent that a primal chaos divine spark bestows upon you. That's not all. The reason you can sense and draw out a primal chaos divine spark is because of the world within your body. It is precisely your world that resonates with the heavenly Tao and gives birth to a primal chaos divine spark. Not only does a primal chaos divine spark bestow upon you the supreme talent to communicate with the primal chaos power, it also brings astonishing benefits to your world within your body. Think about it, your world needs to absorb the essence of the outside world in order to continuously grow and strengthen. If it absorbs the primal chaos power that surpasses the Milky Way, how great of a change will it undergo? Su Fang's eyes flashed with a bright light. The primal chaos power is the origin of heaven and earth and the universe. It also has endless magical uses. Even at my current height, it is difficult for me to understand. However, one thing is certain. Since you possess a primal chaos divine spark, it is equivalent to holding the key to unlocking the secrets of fate. Grasp this opportunity well. Perhaps one day, you will become an existence that even I will have to look up to. Shu Wanjin sighed as her voice disappeared into the origin sacred mirror along with the cold air. Just as Su Fang and Shu Wanjin were conversing, the appearance of the primal chaos divine spark surprised and shocked everyone else in the Transformation Supreme Tao sect. Even the resurrected experts who were madly attacking the three Liao brothers and the second primordial spirit felt an instinctive fear from the aura released by the primal chaos divine spark and stopped attacking altogether. Even a fool would be able to tell that such a peculiar godhead was extraordinary. Apart from being shocked, everyone's reaction was different. The reverence in the hearts of the three Liao brothers towards Su Fang had reached a point where it could not be any higher. Venerable Tyrant Blood's eyes were filled with awe and envy. Poof! Elder, he was unable to fuse with the superior yellow divine spark due to his heavy injuries. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his physical body shattered layer by layer. He was on the verge of death. He then looked at Su Fang with a helpless and bitter smile. He was helpless against fate and the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao was ruthless and fate was cruel. Since ancient times, countless cultivators had wanted to go against the heavens and change their fates, but how many of them had really succeeded? Most cultivators would end up like Elder He, ashes to ashes, and dust to dust. Patriarch Grand Star glared at Su Fang with intense jealousy before greedily looking at him. In order to achieve the great Tao, I did not hesitate to commit suicide and used a supreme forbidden technique to reincarnate in the great world. I planned for a lifetime and cultivated the supreme great Tao of money. I had supreme luck and obtained an inferior earth divine spark. How long has Su Fang been cultivating? He actually obtained such an extraordinary divine spark. This divine spark is at least a heaven divine spark. It might even be a superior heaven divine spark. Why can Su Fang obtain it but not me? The heavenly Tao is so unfair. This divine spark has an all-encompassing aura. It must be compatible with the great Tao that I cultivate. Since such an extraordinary divine spark appeared in front of me, it proves that this is a great creation for me. Even if it doesn't belong to me, I must get it at all costs. Ancestor Hongxing's eyes flashed with decisiveness and viciousness. He opened his mouth and spat out a mysterious purple-gold Xian Guang. A supreme Hong Qi burst out. The purple-gold light quickly condensed into a copper coin that was about 3 meters long. It released a surge of luck and supreme luck, as well as a threatening aura of wealth and fierceness. Fortune coin, collect. Ancestor Hongxing exploded all of his cultivation and the power of transformation brought about by fusing with the divine spark. He also spat out a surge of his own vitality on the purple-gold copper coin. Buzz. The purple-gold copper coin buzzed, and a purple-gold Xian Guang shot out from the square hole in the center. It instantly landed on Su Fang's primal chaos divine spark and enveloped it. The divine power released by the purple-gold copper coin contained a strange power. It seemed that once this copper coin Dharma treasure was used, even ghosts and gods would have to bow their heads. This was the power of money. Money could make ghosts turn millstones. Under the power of money, who would dare not bow their heads? Ancestor Hongxing controlled the power of money. Not only did he have supreme wealth and luck, but he also had the shocking power to control ghosts and gods and plunder everything. Whether it was the mortal world or the world of cultivators, money could plunder everything. This was the power of money. In order to draw out the primal chaos divine spark, Su Fang had exhausted almost all of his energy. Ancestor Hongxing had attacked so suddenly that he was caught off guard. The power of the copper coin Dharma treasure had swept away the divine spark. Ancestor Hongxing, you are courting death. Su Fang shouted sternly. He withdrew the divine power of the world and transformed into his physical body. He swallowed a middle-grade divine essence pill and chased after the divine spark with the help of the pill's explosive power. Su Fang, what qualifications do you have to possess a godhead of such quality? This godhead was clearly prepared for this seat. You're merely making a wedding dress for this seat. If you want to compete with me, don't blame me for being ruthless. Ancestor Hongxing sneered and struck out a handprint. Qi. Mysterious divine inscriptions appeared on the purple gold copper coin, and a fierce and sharp power of the law of the great path of gold quickly spread out. This was the power of money. With money, one could not only bribe ghosts and gods, but they could also crush everything. At that moment, Ancestor Hongxing was enveloped by the light bubble and was not affected by the power of the transformation Supreme Tao Void Vortex. He could easily activate the Dharma treasure. Su Fang had not merged with the divine spark, so he had to use most of his power to deal with the devouring power of the void vortex. In addition, he had consumed too much energy just now, so he could not completely refine the power of the divine essence pill in a short time. How could Su Fang resist Ancestor Hongxing's all-out attack? Ungrateful old man, how dare you hurt my master? You are courting death. The three brothers of the Liao family roared in unison and charged toward Ancestor Hongxing. The second primordial spirit also shot toward Ancestor Hongxing. However, they were obviously half a beat too late. Ancestor Hongxing's copper coin Dharma treasure had already been activated. Suddenly, a figure flashed past Ancestor Hongxing and stood between him and Su Fang. It turned out to be Elder He, who had failed to merge with the divine spark. At that moment, he was burning his yang deity, true qi, life energy, and even the divine spark that had failed to merge with the divine spark. Su Fang, remember your promise to me. Let me take a look at the myriad worlds. Chapter 1833. Elder He's laughter was quickly distorted and swallowed by the void vortex around him. Then, his body, primordial spirit, genuine qi, Godhead, and everything else exploded. Read? Book. Ancestor Hongxing's copper coin magic treasure also exploded with power and collided violently with the energy of Elder He's self-explosion. Ancestor Hongxing was protected by the bubble formed by the purple light, so he was not affected by the collision. However, the attack of the copper coin magic treasure was neutralized by Elder He's self-explosion. This scene surprised Su Fang. Immediately, a surge of grief and indignation surged in his heart and turned into a monstrous rage that burned wildly. Su Fang and Elder He did not have much of a friendship before. Elder He was originally a rogue cultivator. During the Great War of the Immortals and Demons, he fought against the demon army together with Celestial Elder Tianji. His contributions were indispensable, so Su Fang deeply respected him. This time, Su Fang was very respectful of Elder He, who had the heart of a true cultivator, from the road to the heaven's end to the transformation supreme Tao path. Therefore, he took good care of him. At this time, Elder He did not hesitate to self-explode to stop Ancestor Hongxing and neutralize the fatal blow for Su Fang. Although elder, he had sacrificed himself to save Su Fang when he failed to merge with the Godhead and was about to die. Su Fang was still shocked. It should be known that people would often complain and do crazy things when they were about to die. Elder, he had finally collected the Godhead that he had dreamed of and was about to become a god. However, he had failed at the last minute and died. However, he had chosen to save Su Fang, which made Su Fang feel grateful and respectful. His hatred for Ancestor Hongxing had reached an extreme level. Ancestor Hongxing, I, Su Fang, swear that I will tear you into pieces. Su Fang's eyes were burning with anger. With the medicinal power of the middle-grade divine essence pill, the world in his body operated like the heavenly Tao. A burst of power broke free from the shackles of the transformation supreme Tao path. He took a step forward and caught up with the Godhead that was flying toward Ancestor Hongxing. In cultivation, it's nothing more than you rob me and I rob you. You can rob the good fortune from heaven and earth, so why can't I rob the good fortune from you? The good fortune that I can seize is destined not to belong to you. Just accept your fate. Patriarch Hongxing grinned smugly and activated the fortune coin again. Ancestor Grandstar had yet to fuse with the Godhead, so his cultivation was still at the level of a demigod. It was difficult for him to fully control the divine weapon, so he could not release the previous fierce attack. However, the copper coin magic treasure emanated an imposing aura that made the gods and ghosts submit as soon as it appeared. A strand of terrifying divine might that seized the fortune of the heavens and the earth enveloped the chaotic divinity, and it intended to seize Su Fang's karmic luck and fortune. I can seize the fortune and destiny of the Heaven Crossing sect from the heavenly Tao. You actually want to seize the fortune that belongs to you from my hands? What a joke. A purple rune appeared in Su Fang's right palm. After he crushed it, a mysterious purple chi lingered around Su Fang's body and collided with the divine might of the fortune coin. The divine might of the fortune coin that made the gods and ghosts submit shattered layer by layer in the mysterious purple chi. In the end, it collapsed and disappeared. Su Fang grabbed the chaotic divinity in his hand. This purple rune was naturally the purple luck rune that Su Fang had condensed using the purple chi dharma spirit and the life-shrinking technique to devour the devil race's karmic luck. There were a total of 3 purple luck rune talismans. He had used one to resist the curse of the evil god, and Su Fang had given one to his father, Su Yaotian, before he ascended. He did not expect to use the last one at this time. If it weren't for the fact that Su Fang had used up too much of his inner world's energy to sense and draw out the primal chaos divine spark, the purple cloud Dharma spirit would have fused with his inner world and become the heavenly Tao's destiny. Su Fang would have directly activated the purple cloud Dharma spirit instead of using the last purple luck rune talisman. Patriarch Grandstar looked at Su Fang in disbelief. What kind of rune is that? It can actually resist the invincible divine might of the fortune coin. You want to seize my fortune? Are you prepared to die? Su Fang's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he sealed the divinity and stored it in his body. The chaotic divinity was different from other divinities. In Su Fang's current state, not only would it be difficult for him to perfectly fuse with the divinity, but he might even end up like Old Crane. Su Fang sped up the refining process while looking at Patriarch Grandstar from afar. His cold killing intent made Patriarch Grandstar tremble in fear. Whoosh! The 3 brothers of the Liao family and the second primordial spirit also flew to Patriarch Grandstar's side. Since Patriarch Grandstar was in the state of fusing with the divinity, it was as if he was protected by the heavenly Tao. Even the void vortex of the transformation supreme Tao stage could not affect him at all. Although the second primordial spirit had the ability not to be bound by matter, energy, and void, it could not break through the protective divine might of the multicolored light. The 3 brothers of the Liao family were also helpless. The eyes of the eldest brother of the Liao family flickered with sharp intent as he said coldly, "Old man, when the protection of the divinity dissipates, I'll deal with you." The third brother of the Liao family said gloomily, "Skinning and refining your soul are just light punishments. How to deal with you is really a headache." More than 2 hours later, Su Fang had recovered about 30% of his strength. The multicolored light around Patriarch Grand Star had also become very weak and was about to lose its protective power. Su Fang broke free from the shackles of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage and walked over step by step from the depths of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage. Suddenly, when Su Fang was 3,000 feet away from Patriarch Grand Star, he suddenly stopped and turned his head to look at the void vortex on his right. Buzz, 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 buzz. Su Fang's eyes suddenly lit up. There was a movement in the depths of his mind at this moment. Some mysterious Taoist runes of destiny suddenly flashed in the sea of Dharma power in his divine aperture. Heavenly secret life shrinking technique. Then, a golden Xian Guang with the aura of the heavenly punishment of the great world shuttled out of the vortex and quickly condensed into a 300-meter-tall phantom. Shinja Tianjun. He did not expect that Shinja Tianjun would appear at this time. Although it was a projection condensed with the power of the great world's heavenly path, Su Fang was surprised and nervous. Shinja Tianjun's phantom pointed at Patriarch Grand Star and said to Su Fang, "You can't kill him. This person wants to take my fortune and my life. Why are you stopping me?" Su Fang was furious, but he had to suppress his anger. Shinja Tianjun looked at Patriarch Grand Star. "Are you from the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce? Heavenly Lord's eyesight is indeed extraordinary. In my previous life, I was a manager of the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. Due to my contributions to the Chamber of Commerce, I received a chance to reincarnate in the Great World. This time, after ascending to the Great World, I will return to the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce and be valued by the Chamber of Commerce. Please protect me, Heavenly Lord. I will definitely repay you in the future." Patriarch Grand Star cupped his fist. Although he was respectful, he did not have the reverence that many cultivators in the Great World had when they saw a supreme existence that controlled the power of the heavenly path. Luo Tsong exclaimed from the time cave abode in his body. "Patriarch Grand Star is from the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce? Su Fang, I'm afraid you won't be able to kill Patriarch Grand Star now. Is the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce very powerful?" "Very powerful. It's so powerful that you can't imagine it. The Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce is a chamber of commerce force in the Great World. You can imagine how powerful it is. Isn't the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce as powerful as the Great Star Hall in the Great World?" "That's right. Although Patriarch Grand Star is just a manager, his identity is extraordinary. Even the realm master of a god world has to treat him with respect. Shinja Tianjun will not let you kill him." Then Luo reminded him, "You have to be careful of Shinja Tianjun. His motive for suddenly descending to the Transformation Supreme Tao path is not simple. He is most likely here for your chaotic divine personality. This is the border between the Great World and the Great World. Shinja Tianjun can't display the full power of the Great World's heavenly punishment, but it's still not something you can fight against. You have to come up with a plan in advance." Su Fang immediately became vigilant. As Luo expected, Shinja Tianjun nodded at Patriarch Grand Star and said, "Sanskrit has a lot of business with the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. With me here, I won't let you get hurt." "Thank you, Lord Heavenly Lord. When I return to the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce, I will definitely go to Sanskrit to thank you." Patriarch Grand Star was overjoyed. He looked at Su Fang with pride and arrogance. "Didn't you hear what I said? Get out of here." Shinja Tianjun's eyes shot out the great world's heavenly Tao's divine might, sending the second primordial spirit and the 3 Liao brothers flying. Su Fang quickly sent out 4 consciousnesses. It's not good to stay in the Transformation Supreme Tao path for long. Liao brothers, take the second primordial spirit and leave. The second primordial spirit replied, "How are you going to escape? Your primordial spirit's power can't fight against Shinja Tianjun. You leave first, and I will try to escape. Shinja Tianjun shouldn't make things difficult for me. If I'm killed, it doesn't mean that I'm dead. I still have a blood clone in the Great World and another by Xuanxin's side. I'll try to meet them later. Be careful, primordial spirit." The second primordial spirit's cold voice came. Nine Sun's eldest Liao rolled out a Xian Guang from his right palm and took the second primordial spirit into his body. Then, he took the two brothers into the depths of the whirlpool and disappeared without a trace. The three Liao brothers were divine beings. Although the transformation's supreme Tao path was dangerous for them, their lives weren't in danger. Shinja Tianjun had other plans, so he didn't intend to stop them. "Su Fang, I'll make the decision. The grudge between you and Patriarch Grandstar will be written off," Shinja Tianjun said majestically. The Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce was very powerful. In Shinja Tianjun's eyes, Su Fang was just a slave who was about to join the Sanskrit. Although he was very talented, his status was destined. He naturally wouldn't offend the people of the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce because of a slave. Yes. Su Fang had to lower his head. Chapter 1834. As expected of the former king of the Azura Divine Clan. He had guessed correctly that Shinja Tianjun was here for the primal chaos godhead. "You want my godhead?" Su Fang was inexplicably angry. A godhead was related to a god's future cultivation achievement. It was as important as their life. Su Fang had paid a huge price to collect this primal chaos godhead. It was extremely important to Su Fang, so how could he hand it over? Su Fang suppressed the burning anger in his heart and said respectfully, "Lord, Heavenly Lord, this godhead is compatible with the great Tao that I cultivate. It is useless to you." Shinja Tianjuan's shadow exploded with cold air. "I will determine whether it is useful or not. Do I need you to teach me?" Su Fang gritted his teeth and said, "Lord, Heavenly Lord," Shinja Tianjun shouted coldly, "do you think that you are qualified to resist my will just because you are a king in the great world? What a joke. I recommended you to the clan because I think highly of you. Do you really think that you are a great person? Even if you join the Sanskrit, you will only be a servant of the Sanskrit. There are many peerless geniuses like you who would join the Sanskrit for status, and cultivation resources. We don't need you." Shinja Tianjun mocked Su Fang wantonly. "Su Fang, you are awe-inspiring in the great world. Do you think that you are still a big shot in the great world? You even dare to challenge the Lord, Heavenly Lord. You are really reckless." Ancestor Hongxing knew that there was no hope of getting Su Fang's godhead. He was worried that Su Fang would take revenge, so he fanned the flames. Shinja Tianjun said coldly, "Although the godhead is good, how can it be compared to your life? You can take the initiative to hand over the godhead or let me do it. You choose. Think carefully. If I do it myself, I will not only take away the supreme godhead, but also your head." At this time, Venerable Tyrant Blood had also fused with his godhead. Seeing that Shinja Tianjun wanted to forcibly snatch Su Fang's godhead, how could he dare to intervene? As a result, Venerable Tyrant Blood and the others allowed the void vortex to sweep them into the depths of the transformation Supreme Tao stage as soon as the protective divine might around them dissipated. When he brushed past Su Fang, Venerable Tyrant Blood transmitted his voice through his Yuan spirit, "Su Fangda, I'm really sorry. My strength is too low and I can't help you much. I can only leave first. Shinja Tianjun is not someone you can contend against right now. When it's time to swallow the humiliation, you have to lower your head. It's better to swallow this anger." Venerable Tyrant Blood was grateful for Su Fang's help on the path to the end of the world, so he kindly reminded Su Fang. However, Su Fang could tolerate other things, but how could he tolerate something as precious as his life being taken away? The primal chaos godhead belongs to me, Su Fang. No one can take it away. Su Fang's eyes flashed with decisiveness. He was ready to fuse with the godhead regardless of everything. You think that I can't do anything to you after you fuse with the godhead? Shinja Tianjun smiled coldly. I control the heavenly power of the outside world. Even if you fuse with the godhead, it will be difficult for you to return to the outside world. After entering the Transformation Supreme Tao stage, even if you are lucky enough to withstand the energy tide of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage and are sent to a random spatial turbulence in the God realm, you will not be able to leave the Brahma Heaven God realm. And the Brahma Heaven God realm is Sanskrit's sphere of influence. The world is big, but there is no place for an ant like you. Where can you run to? Shinja Tianjun was like a high and mighty heavenly law, looking down on an ant that vainly tried to resist the heavenly law. His voice was full of ridicule. Seeing that Su Fang still had no intention of taking out the godhead, Shinja Tianjun showed killing intent. Lowly ant, you want to resist the will of the heavenly law? You overestimate yourself? Ja. A golden light flashed from the eyes of Shinja Tianjun's illusory figure. It quickly turned into a golden palm that was 300 meters wide. It carried a terrifying heavenly law's punishment aura and covered Su Fang. The golden palm, that was like the heavenly law shattered layer by layer under the pressure of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage void vortex. When it was 30 meters away from Su Fang, it was suppressed to the size of a normal person and couldn't move even a foot forward. Shinja Tianjun snorted inexplicably. Since I have taken a fancy to your godhead, you can't protect it even if you fuse with it. Hand it over. Boom. The golden hand of the heavenly law released a tyrannical suction force. The Transformation Supreme Tao stage was the border between the great world and the myriad world. The heavenly law power of the great world was suppressed to the extreme here. The heavenly punishment power that Shinja Tianjun could use was less than 1% of what he could use in the great world. However, even 1% of the heavenly punishment power was incomparably shocking. Not to mention that Su Fang had only recovered a little more than 30% of his strength at this time. Shinja Tianjun forcibly stripped the godhead from his body, and it fell into the golden hand of the heavenly law. Pft! Su Fang's abdomen was also scratched open by the hand of the heavenly law. Fresh blood violently spurted out. Shinja, you've gone too far. No one can take away what belongs to Su Fang's karma of fate, not even the heavenly law of the great world. Fate is the creation of fate and controls the mysteries of heaven. If I want it, the heavens must have it. Chapter 1835. At the Edge of the Realm of the Gods. 8.8 Reading Book. O greater than or equal to, at the end of the material world, there was a cold and empty void. The chaotic airflow set off a storm, stirring up nebulas in the sky. Star sand danced in the air, creating all kinds of strange scenes. Nebulas filled the surroundings of the material world, adding a bit of mystery to the realm of the gods. A figure rode on a flying sword and flew into the void. It was a young god who looked to be in his early 20s. He was dressed in a green robe and had delicate features. His eyes darted around, making him look very clever, or rather, cunning. After the young god flew out of the void, he was shackled by the chaotic force of nature, making it difficult for him to stabilize his flying sword. He swayed unsteadily. It was obvious that he was not strong enough to control the flying sword. The young god looked fearful, but he still gritted his teeth and flew into the sky. He only stopped when he was near a nebula in the sky. Then, the young god rolled out a corpse from the Xian Guang with his right palm. It turned out that it was not a corpse, but a young man in a brocade robe with a jade belt. He still had a faint aura. The young god muttered to himself, "Young master, it's not that I'm not loyal to you. It's because you were greedy for pleasure and used up all your yang energy. Now you're on your last breath. If I send you back, I'll be skinned alive. I'm really sorry." The young deity took the jade belt on the waist of the teenager, the thumb ring on his finger, and everything else of value. Then, he threw the corpse into the nebula. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, the nebula suddenly started to roll violently like boiling water. The young god was so frightened that his face turned ashen. He exerted all his strength and drove the flying sword toward the material world. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, a void turbulence suddenly exploded, stirring up the nebula and stirring up the entire sky. A figure rolled out of the terrifying turbulence and was rushed into the rolling nebula. Eh! A cry of surprise came from the nebula. Then, the figure fell from the nebula like a meteorite falling from the sky and crashed heavily into a mountain ridge on the material world. Boom! The figure smashed onto a rock, smashing it into pieces. Dust flew everywhere and rocks flew everywhere. This person's bones were also smashed into smithereens and blood splattered everywhere. It was as if a piece of human skin was stuck in the gravel. After a long while, puff, puff, the man's body, which was almost completely shattered, suddenly collapsed and turned into a pool of blood. After wriggling for a while, the blood condensed together and quickly turned into a complete body. The man stood up shakily and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he said gloomily, "This is the God realm? Using this method to ascend to the God realm from the outside world, I'm afraid that our Su Fang has never done it before and will never be able to do it again." This person was Su Fang, who had escaped from the Transformation Supreme Tao stage. With the energy tide of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage, Su Fang was swept to this unknown God realm and was shackled by the world force of the myriad worlds. In addition, he had almost exhausted the last of his strength in the Transformation Supreme Tao stage, so it was difficult for him to activate the power of the world. He fell from the sky and almost died. Fortunately, Su Fang's perfect physical body had reached the height of a divine body when he was in the outside world. This time, after being cleansed by the energy tide of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage, it had become several times stronger. Coupled with the ability of the underworld blood sea, he was lucky enough to escape this disaster. Xinjia Tianjun and Grandmaster Hongxing. Just you wait. I, Su Fang, will get back at you 10 times sooner or later. This time, it could be said that he had narrowly escaped death in the Transformation Supreme Tao stage. Thinking of this experience, Su Fang felt lucky and his hatred for Xinjia Tianjun and Grandmaster Hongxing became extremely strong. At this time, Luo Tsong said from inside his body, "Su Fang, you should thank Grandmaster Hongxing and Xinjia Tianjun." Su Fang was stunned. Thank them? Think about it carefully. If you weren't forced, you would have definitely entered the Sanskrit and been trained as a valuable slave. No matter how talented you are and how strong you are in the future, would Sanskrit let you be the realm master of a divine realm? It's impossible. No matter how strong you are just a hired thug in Sanskrit. Now that you have escaped from Sanskrit's control, isn't it a blessing in disguise? That's true. I would rather be the most humble ant in the divine realm and climb up bit by bit than be a slave of a divine clan. It seems that I really have to thank Grandmaster Hongxing and Xinjia Tianjun. One day I will definitely thank them heavily. Xinjia Tianjun left an imprint in your mind. Although I don't know where this place is, I can tell that it should still be within Sanskrit's sphere of influence. Try to erase the imprint. Xinjia Tianjun is determined to get your Chaos Divine Lattice. He might come here and search for you. If you fall into his hands, you won't be as lucky as you were just now. Recover first, then use the life-shrinking technique to erase the imprint. Su Fang sat cross-legged on the ridge. Chapter 1836. Law then continued. If it's just seizing his primordial spirit consciousness and controlling his body, you can live in his body, and the real powerhouses in the God realm can still see the clues. Therefore, you can't simply take over his Yuan spirit consciousness. Instead, you have to fuse with this body and completely transform yourself into this person. Once you've fused with his body and Yuan spirit, coupled with your supreme ability to conceal the aura of destiny, even if Shinja Tianjun is standing in front of you, he won't be able to recognize you. Su Fang raised his eyebrows. Completely fuse with this body? Su Fang grasped the yellow spring blood sea and night demon's primordial spirit Abhijna. Fusing with this corporeal body and primordial spirit consciousness, it wasn't difficult for him to mask his own aura and reveal it to the outside world. In this way, it was equivalent to Su Fang becoming a completely different person. What made Su Fang unhappy was that this young man was obviously a dandy. His young energy had been exhausted. What kind of good was this kind of person? Fine, in order to escape from Shinja Tianjuan's pursuit, I can only suffer a little. Su Fang took out the time cavern. After entering the seal, his body crumbled layer by layer and turned into a pool of blood. After coming to the myriad worlds, the blood sea was suppressed to only 100 feet in size. Its ability to devour was also suppressed. He had to find a way to improve the yellow spring blood sea's ability and the yellow spring golden body as soon as possible. Fortunately, the yellow spring blood sea was a physical cultivation technique. Su Fang had a perfect body, so it wasn't difficult to gradually improve the yellow spring blood sea's ability. As for the Netherworld Samsara technique, it was a Tao technique that the Netherworld Great Emperor had comprehended from the Netherworld Samsara sword. Su Fang had to comprehend it to a deeper level. Even the Netherworld Samsara sword had to be raised to the divine level. Su Fang had made a great wish in the past. When the world in his body was completed, he would create an undying reincarnation world to save his master, Shu Yunkong, and let his father, family, and friends achieve true immortality. Whoosh! The pool of blood engulfed the young man. With a sizzling sound, the young man's skin and flesh fell off layer by layer and melted into the pool of blood. At the same time, Su Fang used the Immortal Soul Codex's primordial spirit divine ability to fuse with the person's primordial spirit consciousness. After all, this person was a deity. In addition, the underworld blood sea's devouring ability was limited. After Su Fang completely devoured him, it took him half a month. 5 or 6 months had passed in the outside world. After fusing with the youth's life essence, Su Fang had also swallowed the last half of the medial-grade divine essence pill, as well as the large number of divine-tier spiritual items and king-grade yin-yang immortal sky pills he had brought from the great world. He had finally recovered to his peak condition. Su Fang carefully inspected his body, yang immortal, and inner world. Back in the great world, Su Fang's body had already reached the level of a divine body. After being tempered by the transformation supreme Tao, Su Fang's current divine body had already surpassed the true God realm and reached the heavenly God realm. As he had yet to fuse with the Godhead and pass the chaotic divine tribulation, Su Fang's yang immortal and qi were still at the level of a demigod. However, Su Fang already had a trace of the ability to control the world. When his yang immortal passed the transformation supreme Tao, he had withstood a huge test. Although he had yet to transform into a yang spirit, his yang immortal and primordial spirit were much stronger than before. Once he transformed, his yang spirit would definitely be on the same level. Shinja Tianjun is currently searching for me everywhere. Once I fuse with the Godhead, it will cause a huge commotion. The consequences will be unimaginable. I can only wait until I get rid of Shinja Tianjun before I try to fuse with him. After fusing with the body of the young deity, I should be confident in getting rid of Shinja's pursuit. Su Fang slightly activated the Heaven's Secret Life shrinking technique, concealing his own aura and exposing the young man's aura. Then, Su Fang's facial bones and muscles squirmed before finally stabilizing, turning into a handsome young man. It was exactly the same as the young man he had fused with. Just as Law said, even if Shinja Tianjun stood opposite him, it would be difficult for him to detect any clues. Even the young man's mother couldn't see any flaws for a while. The only difference was his temperament. He lacked a hedonistic air. However, Su Fang didn't really want to turn into this young man, so he didn't care much. Law, if Shinja Tianjun can't find me and takes revenge on the Heaven Crossing sect in the outside world, what should I do? This was the thing Su Fang was most worried about. There's no need for you to worry. Law's words made Su Fang feel a lot more at ease. Whether it was a small world, a large world, or a myriad of worlds, they all had their own heavenly Tao laws. These laws were actually a manifestation of the heavenly Tao's consciousness. When one violated the heavenly Tao's will and threatened the operation of the heavenly Tao, the heavenly Tao's consciousness would sense it and send down heavenly punishment. For example, the Yellow Springs Great Emperor established the undying samsara, which violated the heavenly Tao laws. Another example was Su Fang's failure to break through to the deity realm. It was precisely because the heavenly Tao's consciousness sensed the threat Su Fang posed to the outside world that it rejected Su Fang, causing Su Fang to fail in his attempt to break through to the deity realm. Although Shinja Tianjun controlled the heavenly punishment of the outside world, it wasn't the heavenly Tao. Instead, he controlled the heavenly Tao laws of the outside world and followed the heavenly Tao's consciousness to control the heavenly punishment. If Shinja Tianjun violated the heavenly Tao's consciousness and did something beyond his authority, he would also suffer a backlash from the heavenly Tao. When Su Fang was cultivating in the outside world, he attracted the attention of Shinja Tianjun. However, he didn't dare to personally descend to the outside world to look for Su Fang. Instead, he reported it to the Sanskrit and ordered the deities of the sealing heaven divine path to descend. It would be easy for Shinja Tianjun to destroy the crossing heaven sect. However, if he really did so, the price he would have to pay would be unbearable. The gains would not make up for the losses. What's more, what kind of status did Shinja Tianjun have? In his eyes, everyone in the outside world was nothing but ants and weed. How could he take revenge on a group of ants for Su Fang? Hearing Law's explanation, Su Fang's heart calmed down and no longer had any worries. Let's see where this kid came from. The youth's primordial spirit was shattered and there were still some fragments of consciousness left. After Su Fang fused with it, his remaining memories were stripped away. Su Fang interpreted these memories. Kuan Su's divine realm. Which divine realm is this? Kuan Su's divine sex Xian Ling Dao sect. Sovereign's only grandson, young master Mo Fenghua. This identity is not bad. So this youth's name was Mo Fenghua and he came from Kuan Su's divine realm. His identity was not ordinary and he was the only grandson of the Dao sect's sovereign. He continued to interpret. Xia Yanji, that bitch, didn't I just touch your breasts? She actually broke my legs. My breasts are not as big as eggs and my butt is shriveled. I can't feel anything at all. She's much worse than the girls from Fragrant Fragrance House. Fragrant Fragrance House's Monsieur is worthy of having a trace of the fox demon's bloodline. Her martial arts are really not ordinary. She's like an immortal. That old emperor of the divine kingdom actually dared to be rude to this young master. One day, I'll tear down his palace and capture his imperial concubine to serve this young master. Su Fang's head seemed to have been struck by 100 bolts of lightning. He was so shocked that he was dumbfounded. How was this a Dao sect's young master? He was clearly a peerless clown, a top-class hedonist. Luo Yi chuckled, interesting. He's a brat with character, much more interesting than you. Luo, you're starting to be indecent again. Su Fang hurriedly stopped Luo's words. Su Fang couldn't help but smile bitterly after deciphering the memories of this youth named Mo Fenghua. It turned out that the divine realm they were in wasn't Kuan Su's divine realm. Instead, it was a divine realm called Yunjua, which was under the influence of Sanskrit. Kuan Su's divine sect was also a huge power that controlled a divine realm. It had a total of 18 Dao sects and a divine kingdom built by mortals. Mo Fenghua's grandfather was an elder of Kuan Su's divine sect. He controlled a Dao sect and could be considered a big shot in the divine sect. This time, Mo Fenghua brought a follower to the Yunzhua divine realm. However, it wasn't for sightseeing. It was because a woman who was engaged to him, Xia Yunji, had hooked up with a genius from Sanskrit and dyed his head green. Mo Fenghua had come to the cloudy divine realm in an overbearing manner, wanting to wash away her humiliation. In the end, not only was she beaten up, she was even framed by a genius of the Brahma race. While having intercourse with a woman from a brothel, her vital yang was sucked dry, and she almost died. What was even more hateful was that Mo Fenghua's follower was afraid that he would be punished when he returned, so he threw away Mo Fenghua's corpse. It just so happened that Su Fang, who was shot out from the Transformation Supreme Dao Sect's energy tide, encountered it. From Mo Fenghua's remnant consciousness, Su Fang could feel his incomparable anger and hatred. Su Fang was also moved. Su Fang asked Luo, Kuan Su's divine realm and Yunzhua divine realm. Luo, have you heard of these two divine realms before? Since the myriad realms are called myriad realms, how many divine realms are there? Naturally, I have never heard of Kuan Su's divine realm and Yunzhua divine realm. However, from the size and strength of these two divine realms, they should be considered small divine realms. Small divine realms. Since you've come to the myriad realms, then I have to tell you about the myriad realms. Luo slowly explained. The myriad realms are incomparably vast. It is beyond your imagination. They are divided into the ancient divine realm and the divine realm. The ancient divine realm is a divine realm created by the gods in the primal chaos when the heavens and earth were first created. The ancient divine realm is located in the deepest part of the universe. The ancient gods there are powerful existences that are close to eternity. They are mysterious and powerful. If you cultivate for another 1 billion or 10 billion years, you will more or less reach that height. The divine realms that are commonly mentioned do not include the ancient divine realm. Hearing this, Su Fang was dumbfounded. The divine realms are divided into small realms, great realms, and divine realms. A small world was a small plane or a separate plane that was separated from the outside world. A great realm is a large plane or countless small planes that surround a great realm to form the divine realm. A large galaxy formed by countless great realms is the divine realm. Kuan Su's divine realm and Yunzhua divine realm are clearly small realms, similar to an immortal realm in a great realm. Chapter 1837. We can't stay here for long. Su Fang decided to leave this troublesome place first. Read 6 books is not equal to after leaving the cave cliff, Su Fang was worried that he would encounter Shenjia Tianjun. Therefore, he didn't let Demon Sage Green Feather out. Demon Sage Green Feather was in his inner world, so his innate ability would definitely be restricted in the various world. However, it was still very shocking. Su Fang used his power of the world to fly close to the ground. At the same time, he used his Heaven's Secret Life shrinking technique and his perfection stage ability to sense the movements around him. In the past, when he was in a great world, he could traverse tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of li in an instant. Now that he was in the myriad worlds, he was shackled by the power of the world. He had become like a cultivator who had just stepped onto the path of cultivation. This made Su Fang very uncomfortable. There were also mortals in the divine world. Moreover, the mortals in the divine world were born with divine bodies. However, just like the small and large worlds, there were very few who could cultivate. The mortals in the divine world only had strong physical bodies and long lifespans. The cultivators of the heavenly realm had to cultivate step by step before they could reach the level of true God. Strictly speaking, Mo Fenghua, who Su Fang possessed, was still a mortal cultivator in the God realm. She was still one step away from the true God realm. This realm wasn't called a demigod in the God realm. It was called the Mortal Evolution Realm. Mortal Evolution state cultivators couldn't fly in the air yet. Only when they reached the true God state and fused with the natural chi of heaven and earth could they barely fly on a sword. Su Fang's perfected ability was also suppressed in the myriad heavens. However, his divine body had reached the level of a heaven deity after all, and the range of his perfected sensing ability was up to 100 miles. Coupled with the heaven secret life shrinking technique, he could sense the aura of all the cultivators within 1,000 miles. Groups of turbid cloud realm cultivators flew across the sky, obviously searching for Su Fang's whereabouts. Fortunately, Su Fang had a powerful sensing ability, which gave him enough time to evade in advance and conceal his aura. After flying for more than 10 days, he was still safe and sound. On this day, Su Fang's divine light suddenly changed, and it quickly landed on the ground. A group of cultivators from the heavenly realm was flying over on their swords. They were so fast that Su Fang had no time to hide. He could only brace himself and walk on the ground. Whoosh! In less than 5 breaths of time, more than a dozen gods flew over on their flying swords and stopped above the Su Fang. The leader of the group was a middle-aged celestial being. His aura was illusory. Clearly, he wasn't a true god but a heavenly god. He glared at Su Fang and said, "Take him down." Not allowing Su Fang to speak, 2 gods immediately swooped down on their swords with sinister smiles. Looking at their posture, they actually planned to heavily injure Su Fang and then shackle him. Pung! Su Fang was sent flying dozens of feet away. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his sternum was broken. He fell heavily to the ground, and the force of the impact created a deep trench in the ground. The 2 celestial beings landed in front of Su Fang, and one of them pointed at Su Fang. A Xian Guang shot out from his hand and turned into a black rope, binding Su Fang tightly like a snake. "Why did you capture me?" Su Fang asked angrily. "Brat, you can only blame yourself for being unlucky. Don't worry, we won't take your life. Once we figure out where you came from, we'll let you go after paying some money. If you don't have money, you'll be a miner for the rest of your life." One of the cultivators sneered. He reached out and grabbed Su Fang like he was holding a chicken. Su Fang was a peerless overlord in the outside world. But now, he was being treated like a weak chicken and was at the mercy of others. The humiliation in his heart could be imagined. Luo Xing was afraid that Su Fang wouldn't be able to endure it, so he kept reminding him, "Endure, you must endure this. Do you know who this young master is?" Su Fangda shouted angrily. In a moment of desperation, he could only reveal Mo Fenghua's identity. "This young master is Koan Su Divine Sex Xian Ling Dojo's young master Mo Fenghua. You dare to treat me like this? Let's see how my grandfather will deal with you. He's a peerless heavenly god expert. When the time comes, he'll pull out your tendons and flay your skin. You're that Koan Su Divine Sect trash, who came to provoke young Master Fan Su?" The middle-aged god's expression changed. He carefully sized up Su Fang, then his eyes exuded coldness. "I heard that this person died in a woman's stomach. I didn't expect him to still be alive. Kill him and help young Master Fan get rid of this trouble." The middle-aged god sent a message to the god shackling Su Fang. The Destiny Dao runes of the Heavenly Fate Life Shrinking Technique and the Heavenly Fate True runes of the Heavenly Fate Mystic Decipher flashed rapidly in Su Fang's mind, indicating the arrival of fatal danger. The gods of the turbid cloud realm, how dare they kill people so brazenly? Su Fang was shocked and angry. "Su Fang, I'll take control of your body and kill all these gods." Luo's voice came from the cavern of time. "That's the only way." Luo flew out from the cavern of time's blood jade and was about to take control of Su Fang's body. "How dare you!" A thunderous roar came, causing the ground and mountains to shake. An old man walked over on the ground. He seemed to be walking slowly, but his steps contained a strange rhythm that was compatible with the ground. Not only did the gravity of the ground not cause any shackles to him, but it also helped him. With a single step, he could cross a distance of 100 miles. Without waiting for his voice to fade, the old man appeared 10 miles away with a majestic divine aura. Insulting the young master is a crime punishable by death. The old man punched out. Boom, boom, boom. A majestic aura swept over, as if the power of the mountains and rivers was being drawn by the old man. The middle-aged god's divine aura changed instantly. Rays of sword light burst out and quickly formed a sword light barrier in front of him to protect him. Boom! The sword light barrier of the middle-aged god was shattered. He staggered and almost fell from the sky. The other gods did not have the strength of the middle-aged god. Under the terrifying power of the old man's punch, they were sent flying. Their bodies and bones were shattered, and they were severely injured. The god who was shackling Su Fang hurriedly used Su Fang as a shield, but a terrifying earth elemental divine aura of nature passed through Su Fang and hit his chest. Many of his bones and organs were shattered. Su Fang fell to the ground, but he was unscathed. It was clear that the old man's control of the power of nature had reached an extremely exquisite level. These gods from the turbid cloud world had all reached the true god realm, and they possessed powerful divine bodies. As their blood energy surged, their flesh wriggled, and their bones crackled. In just a few breaths, their bodies were restored to their original state, as if they had never been injured in the first place. However, their auras were clearly much weaker. This was the difference between a divine body, a mortal body, and an immortal body. As long as the vital organs such as the head and heart were not shattered, or the blood qi was exhausted, the blood qi in the body could quickly heal the injured body. However, it would consume a lot of blood qi. Before Su Fang fell to the ground, an earth elemental force of nature surged from the ground and firmly supported him. Then, the old man caught him. The old man squeezed hard and the black rope snapped. Su Fang was finally freed from his shackles. "Young master, this old servant came late. You have suffered." The old man looked at Su Fang with tears in his eyes. He looked emotional and guilty. This old man is. Su Fang searched through Mo Fenghua's memories for a while and found out the old man's identity. Mo Fenghua's father had once been the young master of Xian Ling Dao sect. His talent was extremely outstanding, but unfortunately, before he could grow into a powerful expert, he was killed by his enemies and unfortunately died young. Thus, Mo Fenghua's grandfather doted on him so much that he developed such a hedonistic character. This old man was a slave expert by Mo Fenghua's father's side. He was loyal and devoted to the Mo family. After Mo Fenghua's father died, he stayed by Mo Fenghua's side. The old man was called Uncle Chong by Mo Fenghua. His strength had reached the 9th firmament heaven god realm. In Xian Ling Dojo and Kuan Su's divine world, he could be considered an expert. "Uncle Chong, I'm fine. You don't have to worry." Su Fang touched the tip of his nose. This time, he could only brace himself and pretend to be Mo Fenghua. "Young master, you're really fine?" Uncle Chong looked at Su Fang in surprise and asked carefully. If it was in the past, Mo Fenghua, this idiot young master, would definitely be scared to the point of peeing his pants. Then, he would unceremoniously scold Uncle Chong. This time, he walked one round on the edge of death. Not only did he not pee his pants, he also did not scold Uncle Chong. Instead, he was somewhat polite, which made Uncle Chong feel strange. Su Fang said, "If Uncle Chong had come a step later, I'm afraid something would have happened." Seeing that Su Fang did not seem to be in trouble, Uncle Chong finally relaxed. Killing intent flashed in his deep eyes. He took a step forward and flew into the sky. Then, he powerfully and tyrannically punched the deities of the turbid cloud divine world one after another. 9 true 9 sons among the dozen or so deities, except for the middle-aged deity, they could only be crushed by Uncle Chong. After their bodies were shattered, they quickly recovered. Then, they were heavily injured by Uncle Chong. After a few times, their divine bodies could not bear it anymore. Uncle Chong was submissive in front of Mo Fenghua, but his attacks were so tyrannical and ruthless. Seeing this, Su Fong felt apprehensive. The middle-aged deity shouted angrily, "Stop! This seat mistakenly captured young Master Mo, and you heavily injured this seat's subordinate. We're even now. If you continue to push your luck, don't blame this seat for being impolite. Uncle Chong, spare their worthless lives. Let's go, leave the turbid cloud divine world." Su Fong promptly stopped Uncle Chong. If he really killed these deities, it would definitely be difficult for him to leave the turbid cloud divine world. Uncle Chong was surprised again. Then, he pulled Su Fong and released an astonishing divine might that could control the earth. With a single step, he covered a distance of 100 miles. His speed was several times faster than imperial sword flight. Su Fong felt the earth flashing past under his feet. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, he covered a distance of more than 100,000 miles. An incomparably huge city appeared in his great perfection realm vision. Chapter 1838. After all, he is someone close to you. Count Chong vaguely felt that something was wrong with young master, which is why he asked. 88 Read Book 2 √3 Cento. Faced with Count Chong's question, Su Fong was startled at first, but soon after, he put on an angry and embarrassed expression. "Do I need to tell you, old servant, about the ugly things that this young master has experienced? Who am I? Do I need to explain anything to you?" This kind of tone and expression was the most common expression of Mo Fenghua. Only then did Count Chong completely dispel his suspicions. He thought to himself, young master must have experienced a life-and-death situation, so it's normal for his temperament to change greatly. However, young master has gotten into big trouble this time. How will he explain it to Lord Sovereign? Young master, please calm down. This old servant is only concerned about young master, which is why I asked. Since young master is unwilling to say, this old servant will not ask any more. Count Chong hurriedly apologized to Su Fong. Don't ask about this young master's matters in the future. Su Fong inexplicably snorted, putting on an unreasonable and domineering appearance. In reality, Su Fong was relieved. As long as he could fool Count Chong, it would be the same as turning into Mo Fenghua, and his chances of leaving the turbid cloud realm would be much higher. It had to be said that Su Fong's luck was pretty good to have such a loyal servant like Count Chong. Otherwise, if he turned into Mo Fenghua, even if he could avoid Xinjia Tianjuan's search, it would still be difficult for him to leave the turbid cloud realm. Count Chong continued, "Young master, such a big thing happened to you in the turbid cloud realm, and it has already spread back to the dojo. Someone will definitely inform the sovereign. When you return to the divine sect, Lord Sovereign will definitely punish you. You must be very careful. When the time comes, remember to beg for forgiveness from Lord Sovereign. Once Lord Sovereign's heart softens, this matter will be over." Mo Fenghua's head was dyed green, and he was beaten up by Sanskrit's young master Fan Su. Then, he was schemed against by Fan Su, who made Mo Fenghua release all of his yang essence on a brothel girl. These scandals happened in the turbid cloud realm, so they would not have spread back to the Kuan Su realm. It was just that this Mo Fenghua had a hedonistic nature and was also an idiot trash. Yet, he had the identity of the young master of Xian Ling Dojo, who knew how many people were thinking about him and wished for him to die earlier. With such a thing happening this time, how could those people not deliberately spread the news? No matter how much Mo Fenghua's grandfather doted on him, this time, he would definitely be enraged by thunder. It's just a small matter. What do I have to fear? Let's go back to Kuan Su's god realm. Su Fongdao waved his hand, as if he didn't care at all. Count Chong sighed helplessly. This young master was born to be a pile of mud. When would he be able to climb up the wall? Uncle Chong brought Su Fong to the huge city. This city was the divine capital of the cloudy divine realm. It was 100,000 miles wide, and it was supported by clouds and mist. It gave off a majestic and mysterious feeling. The divine capital was like another world. Mountains, forests, and rivers filled the city. Towering buildings stretched as far as the eye could see. Cultivators were either riding on various rare and exotic beasts that Su Fong couldn't name. He could even see giant dragons, divine birds, and other divine beasts that had long disappeared from the great world. Cultivators were also riding on flying swords and magic treasures, shuttling through the air like clouds. The neatly planned streets on the ground were also crowded with people. There were also some tall divine mountains floating in the air, isolated by powerful barriers. Only caves and palaces could be faintly seen inside. They were overflowing with divine light. Clearly, these were the residences of Sanskrit cultivators. This was the first time Su Fong had seen the cultivation civilization of the divine realm. He was like a country bumpkin who had just entered the city from the countryside. Because Count Chong was beside him, Su Fong didn't dare to show it on his face. At this time, Luo Zai said in his mind, "This is only the divine capital of a small world. It's about the same as a medium-sized city in a small world. If you see the divine capital of a great world or the divine realm, it'll be truly prosperous." This is nothing? Luo, you said that Sanskrit is one of the top 1,000 divine clans in the universe, while the cloudy divine realm is only a small world. Isn't that inconsistent with Sanskrit's power? Sanskrit is indeed one of the top 1,000 divine clans, but I've never told you that Sanskrit's sphere of influence only covers a small world like the cloudy divine realm. Those who control the cloudy divine realm are at most a branch family of Sanskrit. Sanskrit controls thousands of small worlds like the cloudy divine realm. The true experts of Sanskrit are the peerless giants who command the divine realm. What's the cloudy divine realm worth? Sanskrit is so powerful. Su Fong was shocked. What, are you afraid? Afraid? I, Su Fong, went from a trash who couldn't cultivate to the galaxy overlord of a small world. Then, I went against the heavens and became a supreme existence in a large world. Along the way, I stepped on the corpses of countless experts and climbed countless mountains. Sanskrit is incomparably powerful, and I can't surpass them for now. However, as long as I continue to walk step by step, there will be a day when I surpass Sanskrit. If Sanskrit blocks my path, I will also step on Sanskrit under my feet. You've cultivated the world in your body and obtained the primal chaos divine lattice, so you have the qualifications to surpass experts and reach the peak. Moreover, you have the supreme luck brought to you by the purple cloud law spirit. As long as your mind is firm, you can overcome all dangers and reach the peak. While Su Fong and Luo were conversing, Uncle Chong brought Su Fong and flew across the sky. Su Fong slightly activated the Heaven's secret life shrinking technique and concealed his own aura. What was revealed was Mo Fenghua's aura. They arrived above a group of buildings in the central region of the divine capital. Looking down from the sky, this group of buildings looked like an incomparably large copper coin imprinted on the ground. Su Fong could see with a single glance that the resplendent and luxurious buildings were very similar to the Great Star Hall in the Great World. However, this one was 100 times larger and had a more shocking aura. The number 1 merchant association in the universe, Tong Bao Merchant Association. Uncle Chong brought Su Fong to the plaza outside and walked into the Tong Bao Merchant Association. Immediately, a beautiful woman came forward. "May I ask what you need, dear guest?" "Through the realm-crossing Stargate, go to Kuan Su's divine world," Uncle Chong said majestically. With a flip of his right hand, a red waist token appeared in his hand. He waved it at the beautiful woman and then kept it back into his body. "Luo, what's the realm-crossing Stargate?" Su Fong asked Luo in astonishment. The memories extracted from Mo Fenghua were incomplete and didn't have any memories regarding the realm-crossing Stargate. The divine worlds are separated by a great distance, and there are all kinds of dangers between them. Even the realm lords of small realms don't dare to travel through the void from one divine world to another. Therefore, the starry gate that was built between the divine realms was actually created by peerless experts using supreme divine abilities and formations to attract the world origins of the two divine realms to each other, forming a spatial tunnel. It's very convenient to travel between two divine worlds through the realm-crossing stargate, but the price to pay is huge. Some heaven god experts who don't have a strong background might not be able to leave the divine world in their lifetime because they can't afford to use the realm-crossing stargate. You have the opportunity to travel through the realm-crossing stargate as soon as you enter the divine world, and it's all thanks to Mo Fenghua. Those who can build the realm-crossing stargate are the major forces of the divine worlds. Small realms like the Turbid Cloud Divine World and Kuan Su's Divine World don't have the ability to build the realm-crossing stargate. Only the rich Tong Bao Merchant Association can control the realm-crossing stargate. Su Fang had a direct understanding of the Tong Bao Merchant Association's strength. It seemed like it wouldn't be easy to kill Patriarch Grandstar. The beautiful woman brought Su Fang and Uncle Chong to a palace behind the Tong Bao Merchant Association. After Uncle Chong paid a huge sum of money, he was taken by the people of the Tong Bao Merchant Association. They went through a spatial formation in the palace and were teleported to a valley outside the divine capital. In the valley, there was a 7-colored passageway created by a formation. It flashed with flowing light, giving people the feeling that time and space were changing and flowing. The passageway was extremely deep, and there was boundless world energy surging from it from time to time. Realm-crossing stargate. There was a pavilion outside the valley, and there were already more than a dozen cultivators waiting in the pavilion. Every time the realm-crossing stargate was opened, it would consume a huge amount of resources. Other than a few important figures, it couldn't be opened for just one person. Therefore, it would only be opened once there were 20 people. Su Fang just walked into the pavilion. Buzz, the Destiny Dao runes of the Heaven's secret life shrinking technique immediately flashed in Su Fang's mind. He sensed an aura of nothingness sweep past him and Uncle Chong. Shinja Tianjun. It turned out to be Shinja Tianjun. Su Fang's heart trembled. Shinja Tianjuan's senses didn't linger on Su Fang for long. Clearly, he didn't find any clues from Su Fang. Su Fang secretly sighed in relief. The Heaven's secret life shrinking technique was so extraordinary that even a God realm expert like Shinja Tianjun couldn't sense anything. Shinja Tianjun wants to guard the Stargate so that I can't escape from the Turbid Cloud realm. In the end, I can't escape from his grasp. But he would never have dreamed that I would slip away from under his nose. Shinja Tianjun, you killed the Yellow Spring Great Emperor, and now you're trying to steal my godhead. One day, I'll definitely kill you. A ruthless glint flashed across Su Fang's eyes. At the same time, Shinja Tianjun was sitting cross-legged in a cave on a floating mountain in the Turbid Cloud Realm's divine capital. This was one of Shinja Tianjuan's clones. He looked like a mighty middle-aged man with sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, and a steel needle-like beard. He was constantly releasing his sensing power, locking onto the palace where the Stargate of the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce was located. Half a year ago, I sensed the imprint left in Su Fang's divine aperture. However, I couldn't sense anything after that. In the past half a year, I've searched the entire Turbid Cloud realm but couldn't find any trace of Su Fang. Could he have died in the energy tide of the Transformation Supreme Dao stage? With Su Fang's strength and the fact that he had exhausted all his energy, the possibility of him dying in the Transformation Supreme Dao stage is extremely high. This kid's death isn't regrettable, but it's a pity that I don't know what quality that godhead is. Shinja Tianjun snorted coldly. His starry eyes revealed a look of regret. If he had known earlier, he would have obtained the godhead at all costs in the Transformation Supreme Dao stage.